surgical admitter Joanne Morante for the unpaid balance on a ski weekend. Joanne says the trip was a disaster and she's not paying. She is countersuing for pain and suffering.
This is case number 11 on the calendar in the matter of Manthorn versus Morante. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Mr. Manthorn, you are an event planner, according to what I read in your complaint.
Yes, Your Honor.
You plan different kinds of trips.
I'm actually a club promoter, not an event coordinator.
Well, but you were planning trips.
Yes.
This particular event was a trip.
Yes.
Mrs. Morante wanted to plan a weekend with some friends, and she answered your ad. Your ad was for what kind of a weekend, Miss Morante?
Freestyle ski trip.
What does that mean?
Freestyle is a type of music, like classical or disco. It's a certain type of music.
Would somebody my age like that kind of music?
Not at all.
You answered that very fast, Mr. Morante. Do you know what freestyle music is?
I have no idea.
Can you hum something in freestyle?
No, I don't really want to.
Okay. Anyway, and that was the ad that you placed, is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you signed up, you gave them a deposit.
Correct.
And how much was the deposit?
$250. $50 per girl. There were 5 girls.
2 days? Saturday,
yes,
Sunday?
From Friday night arrival, Sunday morning departure.
So 2 nights?
Correct.
Okay. And she paid you?
Yes, she did.
She went on the weekend eventually, even though the date was changed.
The ski trip that I had promoted for was canceled. The date wasn't changed. The freestyle event was canceled for that weekend.
That I never knew about.
Okay.
Until now, today.
Shh. That was canceled.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you planned something else. Why was that canceled?
Okay, it was canceled due to the lack of people. We couldn't get people to go on the ski trip weekend.
Because nobody knows what it is. So then you planned something else.
No. What I did, I put them on a different ski trip for the following weekend.
Without our knowledge.
Well, just a second. You planned something else for them.
I gave them an alternative. I gave them 2 alternatives. I gave them, alternative number 1 was give them their deposit of $250 back.
That's a lie.
Shh.
Or I could put them on the second week.
Just a second. Shh, listen to me. She gave you the $250.
She mailed it to me, the deposit of $250.
Okay. So you had her address.
Yes, I did.
Can I see the letter that you sent her indicating that you were canceling the freestyle weekend, but you were giving her 2 options? Can I see that letter?
There was no letter.
That's all I wanted.
Thank you.
There was no letter. But one way or another, you got on this second weekend that they had planned, you and 4 friends.
Me and 3 other girls.
You and 3 other girls.
One was soon to be my sister-in-law.
Please, I don't need that information.
Okay.
I have a very, very busy day today. And you say it was a trip from hell.
It was a disaster.
Can I see the ad for the weekend?
The original that I picked up?
The original.
This is the original.
The original? That's the only one that he's got? Because...
No, I received the second one.
Oh, you did receive it?
At the hotel.
Oh, okay. Not before you went?
Not before I went.
Okay. So tell me, now this looks like a very nice promotion.
Yes.
This is what you've sent out, right?
Yes, I was still promoting for that, yes.
Good. And what you're suing for, sir, is she stopped payment on the $940.
Yes, she did, and I have the check right here.
I believe you. She doesn't deny it. She says that it was a disaster. So I'm going to hear her. Okay. Tell me why it was a disaster.
Okay. Prior to leaving for the trip, Brian changed the dates on us 1 week in advance.
You went. You didn't have to go.
Okay.
You went.
We went to the bus location with him saying that he was going to meet us there Friday evening at about 6 p.m. with about 4 or 5 buses waiting to hurl 500 people up to this freestyle music weekend. There's no Brian. There's only 2 buses. We were not on any kind of list, my name or any of the girls that were with me. To get on the bus, we had to sit there and talk to people that did not know who we were.
So you first had a problem with the organization.
Right.
You finally got on a bus.
We finally got on a bus. The minute we sat down, we smelled marijuana. We refused to sit on a bus with marijuana for our health reasons, and we weren't planning this kind of ghetto weekend. We were trying to go away to have a nice weekend trip. And this was not something that I would ever be interested in.
Okay.
So we complained. They opened up the vent on the bus and sprayed air freshener. I walked right off the bus with the 3 girls.
Okay.
Called my husband, called Brian. He did not pick up his cell phone. He didn't show up.
What did you do next?
I complained to the bus drivers. I complained to the other promoters who never heard of me, who didn't even know who Brian was. And they told us to
get on another bus?
They made us get on another bus. Correct.
Was that bus okay?
That bus had a lot of drinking and cursing. It was better than the marijuana, but it was not acceptable once we were en route.
Did you get to where you were going?
We did, without being able to use the bathroom, all three girls.
When you got to where you were going, tell me about the accommodations that you had.
We walked in. People from the first bus were mimicking, saying things to us because we complained about the pot smoking. They were saying we were troublemakers.
I'm not interested in what they were saying about you. I'm interested in the accommodations.
Okay, well, the accommodations was a room that, had 2 double beds. We were, all 4 girls staying in the same room together.
Did you stay?
We stayed in the hotel room with the doors locked, towels under the door because of the marijuana.
You stayed in the hotel?
Correct, we did.
Why didn't you go home?
I had no way of getting home. He came and picked me up, and he cut his bachelor party short because he was in Atlantic City with my brother and the rest of the guys. And he had to drive over 3 hours to come pick me up, and we had to go home with him squished like sardines in a truck, 4 girls and suitcases and everything, because we refused to get back on the bus with the people that was ghetto that we would not want to be around. Going home another 3 hours. We were not allowed to use the bathroom in the bus unless we took alcohol shots from strangers. It's ridiculous.
Listen to me. I don't understand.
You find it funny. I don't think it's funny.
Miss Moranti, listen to me.
You weren't there.
Miss Moranti, listen to me. I don't understand why you would stay in the hotel.
Well,
Because she's lying, Your Honor.
I'm lying? You weren't even there.
No.
Okay?
Mr. Man, if you can't behave yourself, that's not going to bode well for your success in this case. Do you understand?
Yes,
ma'am. Were you supposed to be on this trip, Mr. Man?
I was going. Originally, I was going to go, but I'm in the National Guard, and I had drill that weekend.
Show me. I believe you're in the National Guard. Show me that you were on a drill that weekend.
My drill assembly schedule was at home, but I let Joanne know and I let Liz know.
No, you did not.
Just a second. Did you tell them before you took their money that you weren't going to be there?
I told them when they came to make the final payment that I wasn't going to be there.
That's a lie. I never made final payment.
Just a second.
She never made final payment with me. Liz came to my place of business and was going to make final payment, and that's when I let them know that the ski trip was canceled, and I would give them 2 options. Option number 1, I'll give them back the deposit.
How much profit did you make on this, sir?
I made $50 off each girl, so I made $200.
And you were the subcontractor?
I was the sub-promoter, yes.
Because you said, I'll get a certain number of bodies for you to go.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
That's how it works, yes.
Did you explain that to Miss Moranti, that you were not promoting this, that you were
I told her I was a sub-promoter. The main promoter is on top of the flyer.
And he wasn't there.
Just
it was a different company.
Just a second. All I want to know is, did you tell Miss Moranti that this was not something that you were organizing and promoting?
Yes.
You were merely saying that. Is that right?
Yes.
No, he told me he was a promoter, and his phone number's on that card.
If you're going to be fixed with what's in your head and not listen to my question, you're not helping yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it. Or understand.
Because you're not listening, you have to put on your listening ears.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You have a counterclaim for your pain and suffering. And right now, what you're being to me is a pain. And I'm suffering.
And later today.
What a con artist. I mean, does she think that we're stupid, that she's going to be able to resolve this issue with those kind of answers?
Hope springs eternal.
Sit down, April.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Promoter Brian Manthorn says former client Joanne Morante owes for the balance on a weekend ski trip. Joanne says the trip was unsafe.
Did the plaintiff ever tell you that he was not in charge of promoting this event?
No, he didn't.
Listening ears, that somebody else was in charge of promoting this event, and all he was doing was providing bodies at $50 a person.
No, he didn't.
Of course not. Don't fib to me, sir.
Your Honor.
Now, listen to me. Did you tell her that this was not your gig, that you didn't know anything about it, but that you were getting $50 a head for every person that you brought in?
I didn't tell her what I was getting. I told her that I was sub-promoting. Yes, I did. I didn't tell her that I was
You're a
I didn't tell her what I was
Swiftie.
making.
I don't believe you. Did he tell you that?
No.
Of course not. I don't believe you. That's a fib.
Thank you.
Well, Your Honor, I also have a tape. She's claiming something about the bus ride. I also have a tape that Liz left on my voicemail message about the bus ride. Can I play it?
Absolutely.
Save voice message.
Hey, what's up? Just wanted to call you that,
Is that
now
Liz?
we've been happy. They changed us bus, which is much better than what we were before. And what I was trying to tell you before was like, it was a really, really ghetto, and
See?
like, I don't know, it just felt like weed and stuff, which is like, I don't know. But now they changed us to another bus, so much better. So we're like more happier. So if anything, I'll talk to you. All right, bye.
That's exactly what she said.
Yes, and that was before.
She said that the second bus. She said the second bus. She had the drink and everything like that.
That's correct. To use the bathroom.
She said the second bus was better. Why should she have to tolerate the first bus?
Absolutely. I agree with her 100%.
Good. Then you get nothing. Stick with what you know, sir. Sounds to me like she had a horror show of a weekend. It was so bad that she wouldn't return on the bus back home, and she asked her husband, who will vouch for that, I assume, to cut his weekend short, to come and pick up the 4 girls because they were so put off by what was going on with the bus that they didn't want to take the bus home. Why do you think she would do that if it wasn't miserable?
Because she calls me a con artist.
You are. You are.
Okay, if I'm such a con artist,
you are.
If I'm such a con artist, then when she wrote me these checks, I would have cashed them the day of.
That's your problem.
I never did that.
When to cash the checks.
She
Your
did.
counterclaim's dismissed.
She absolutely did. She said.
Do you understand?
I guess.
You guess. You know why?
No.
Very easy. Because you have a counterclaim for your pain and suffering. And right now, what you're being to me is a pain. And I'm suffering. Because I already told you that this is a court. And in a court, when I look at you, you testified he was quiet. So your counterclaim is dismissed. That's your punishment.
It's a big punishment.
It is. It absolutely is. So you got $250 deposit. That check went through. Is that right?
Yes, it went through.
You got $50 a person for how many people?
For 4 people.
That's $200. That's $450. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How much money are you out?
I'm out $940 minus $200.
That's right.
That'd be $7.
That's what you're out. Don't do it again. Stick with what you know. If you con somebody into thinking that they're going to have a great weekend and they have a miserable weekend, there has to be consequences. That's your consequence, $750. Your counterclaim's dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Brian's a con artist. He got what he deserved.
Outrage that somebody can pay for something, spend the whole entire weekend, and still get away with not paying for it.
It was just horrible. It was terrible. There was marijuana going on.
Marijuana use is illegal. She had the choice to get off that bus.
It was out of control, ghetto, something that I would never take part of.
When she seen that it was so ghetto, quote unquote, she could have left. She chose to keep going.
He deceived me from the beginning.
Stay away from prissy girls like that.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Liebhardt versus Malone. Step forward.
19-year-old student Angela Liebhardt is suing her ex-boyfriend, automotive technician Michael Malone, for the return of her furniture and for throwing away her computer. Michael says the computer had a virus.
Miss Liebhardt, you and the defendant lived together for a brief period of time and claimed that when you moved out, you left some of your stuff there for the defendant to store. You don't want it back anymore. And then there was a computer that Mr. Malone says he got tired of storing and it was broken anyway, so he threw it out. Okay. When did you meet him?
I met him in December of '03.
Where?
At a bar that a friend of mine owns.
How soon did you move in with him?
It was almost immediately.
What does that mean? That mean that night, the next day?
It was probably about a week or so.
What made you make such a precipitous move?
It was an error in judgment.
Okay. What did you bring with you?
I brought my bed with me. Things were given to me during the relationship. The computer was given to me approximately a month before we broke up.
By whom?
My grandmother.
Was it a new computer?
Yes, brand new.
How old were you when you moved in with him?
18.
How old are you?
29.
29. All right. When you moved out in June?
Yep.
Under what circumstances?
He told me to leave.
Did he say why?
We were done.
You weren't getting along anymore?
Yeah.
Why did you leave the computer?
I was leaving town for a few days, and I asked him if it was okay if I left my stuff there for a few days. He told me it was all right. I could leave it there as long as I needed, and I've attempted to get it back on numerous occasions, and he's never there.
Well, after you left in June, when was the first time that you attempted to get your computer and furniture back?
It was 3 days after I moved out.
Tell me what you did.
I called him up, and he wasn't home, and I told him that that's when I would be back in town, is in 3 days.
So you called him up, he wasn't home?
Yes.
So, what'd you do next?
I waited a few days and called him again.
And did you speak to him?
I made an appointment to go and get my stuff with him.
So that was about, let's say, a week later, you made an appointment to go and get your stuff?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Are you making it up as you're going along, or is that the truth as you remember it?
Angela Liebhardt says ex-boyfriend Michael Malone threw away her computer. Michael says the computer was junk.
Step up. What is your last name?
Renee Williams.
Okay. Miss Williams, when for the first time did you contact Mr. Malone?
I started attempting to call him in October.
Did you ever speak to him?
There was a couple times. One time we set a time to meet. At that time he had...
To meet to do what?
So that I could get Angela's stuff for her.
What furniture is there?
There is like a china cabinet and like a hutch type thing, like a buffet.
Something that's wooden.
Yes, 2 wooden things.
Okay. Where are her 2 wooden chests that she has?
They're in a back room at my house.
Okay, you have no objection if she comes and gets those, do you?
No, not at all.
Good. 5 days from today, you may bring a peace officer if you wish. There'll be an order. Those 2 items are to be in the front of the house. Do you understand?
Yes.
5 days from today, 9 a.m. You'll get a formal order of that. With regard to the computer, sir, you're going to have to convince me why you don't owe her $1,073.67 for the computer.
At first, I had no problem with them getting the computer. Then the computer broke, and we were getting ready to move, and it was junk to me. I've had them say, you can come get it, you can do whatever.
Well, at that point, it was junk, sir, because if you were using it, and if it broke while you were using it, you're responsible for it.
He didn't say that we could come get it. First, he told her that it was at his mom's. Then his wife told me that it was stolen. And now he's saying that it's junk.
Step up. Your name?
April Malone.
April? Mm-hmm. Did you ever tell Miss Williams that the computer was stolen?
Yes, that's what I had known that it was. I didn't know that.
What do you mean
stolen.
you had known? That's what you had known that it was. Explain that to me.
I was told that it was stolen. I didn't know that it was broken.
Who told you that it was stolen?
Some of his family members.
What about him? You didn't ask him?
No.
You didn't say to your husband what happened to you? His family members told you it was stolen? April, look at me. She says to you, where's the computer? You say to her, it's stolen.
I don't know anything about the computer. To my knowledge, I knew it was stolen.
Well,
that's
just a second. You're living with your husband, right, April?
Yes.
So it had to be your husband that told you it was stolen.
I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about this relationship.
Are you listening to what I'm saying? I'm not asking you about relationship. Pay careful attention. You don't get off the hook, because I shake it until I get the truth. That if you told her the computer is stolen, you got that from your husband.
I'm not sure who I got it from. I tried resolving this problem. I offered to claim it on our home insurance policy. I called them, and I had called my father-in-law because I did not know who the insurance policy was through. I still don't.
So what did you do? You called your father-in-law and said, I want to know who our insurance carrier is, right?
Yes, I tried that.
What do you mean you tried? So did you get an answer?
No, I did not.
Why didn't you get an answer? They don't want to talk to you?
My father-in-law is only home like once a week. He travels.
God. What a con artist. I mean, does she think that we're stupid, that she's going to be able to resolve this issue with those kind of answers?
Hope springs eternal.
Sit down, April. Does it embarrass you to stand up in front of 10 million people and appear to be so foolish?
No.
How many children?
I could do.
Let me ask you a question. How many children do you have?
I don't have any children.
Try keeping it that way.
I plan on it.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,073.67. 5 days from today, you can go get your property. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Ms. Blount, you are suing the defendant for a backpack and its contents.
Yes, Your Honor.
Lots of expensive goodies in this backpack that you had left in her car.
Yes.
The defendant has a rather interesting defense, which I'm going to allow her to explain to Officer Byrd here, because he's going to be fascinated with the defense. How did you know each other?
We're acquaintances, former co-workers. We've known each other for about a year, and we had both been at the same festival.
What kind of festival was it?
It was a music festival.
When?
It was the weekend ending on Sunday, June 26th.
What were you doing there?
I was working. I have a second job. I was working for the brewery there, and so I'd been working every day and camping at night. And
the defendant, what were you doing there?
I was working for the promoter of the festival. I've worked for him for the past 3 years. I'm in charge of ticket sales, handling cash for the festival.
Good. So you saw each other there during the weekend, and
yes.
According to what I read in your complaint, Ms. Blount, the defendant was going to give you a ride home.
Yes, she had offered on the last day, on Sunday, she said, how are you getting home? I said, I'm not sure yet. I knew.
Where do you live?
We both live in Portland, maybe 45-minute drive from
where
the
festival was held?
Yes.
So she said, how are you going to get home?
Yes, and she said, I'll give you a ride home. Here are my keys. Put your pack in my car. I want to emphasize before anything else that this pack was full of everything I needed for 4 days on cold nights in Oregon. I work at a camping outdoor store. It wasn't cheap, shoddy merchandise. It was very nice. It was Several of the items were brand new.
Okay.
A little while later, it started raining. Felicia approached me, said, you know what, I'm going to go home a little early. I can't give you a ride home. So I said, well, let me go out of your car now. She goes, oh, don't worry about it. At 5:30, we will meet. We made plans to meet on the road where the road forks on her way out en route to the exit.
And what time were you going to leave?
I was working that evening, so I wasn't leaving until later in the evening.
Okay, you were going to leave at 5:30.
I had approached Sarah in the beer garden where she was working and said that it was raining and I wasn't going to stay until the festival was over.
So you were leaving early. You were
so I was going to leave early. So I asked her what would be a good time to meet. We both agreed that 5:30 would be a good time. That was a few hours before the meeting time is when I had approached her.
Fine. So what happened?
So she said, let's meet where the road forks and we'll meet at my car. If I'm not there, go up to the parking lot, which I knew where that was because I had gone to put my pack in her car at the parking lot. So at 5:30 on the dot, I stopped what I was doing and I went to the road. I couldn't find her. I couldn't see where she was, so I went up to the parking lot. I couldn't see her car there. I'm looking for her car, which is a station wagon. It's a white wagon. I look up and down. I walk up and down the road for approximately 15 minutes, thinking, you know what? I have to get back to work. I don't see her. So I go back to work. I had no cell phone at the time because it was in the pack, and nobody's cell phone had any reception at the point, so I couldn't get a hold of her immediately. So I waited until I got another ride later that evening, and I called her, I think, 2 times, and didn't hear any response until the following morning.
Okay. What happened, Ms. Hale?
I went to my car. I waited at my car till about 5:33 is when I got in my car. I got to the corner at 5:36 and waited for a few minutes. And I didn't see Sarah. So when I had gone to speak with her earlier at the beer garden, she had expressed to me that she needed her pack. So I didn't want to leave the festival with her backpack, knowing that she needed it. The place where I was a one-way out road, and I was blocking the exit to leave the festival. So I couldn't wait there. There happened to be a gentleman sitting in a chair who was a staff member. He had a staff shirt on, sitting in his chair, and I told him what was going on, that I was supposed to meet this woman to give her backpack there. She wasn't there. Would it be all right if I left it with him? He was...
You hear those groans?
He was a staff member. He was a staff member. He was going to be there for the next hour and a half. She wasn't there. And she'd told me she needed her bag. I had no way of getting a hold of her, so I figured the best thing to do is to leave it in the exact spot where we're supposed to meet. It's a visible spot, and he was going to be there for the next hour and a half. I told him her name, who she worked for, and he said, does she know to meet you here? And I said, yes, but it's 5:36, and it's, you know, by this point I had been there a couple of minutes. There were cars behind me trying to leave, and I had to go.
Got it? Yeah. All right, can I say... I had no idea I was looking for a man, a stranger.
The law is pretty clear. You do not owe her extraordinary care in taking care of this backpack, which you gratuitously said you can put in my car. You owe her what I perceive to be ordinary care. The question is, did you exercise ordinary care in first waiting according to you, giving you every possible benefit of the doubt, 6 minutes beyond the 5:30, 6 minutes, not a half hour, not 40 minutes, not an hour, 6 minutes beyond which you claim she was late. That's giving you every benefit of the doubt. Let's say your watch might have been off a minute or two.
Okay.
Okay? Did you exercise ordinary care in turning this backpack over to someone that, despite the fact that you say he was a staff member because you didn't know, he didn't know her, he didn't know what she looked like. She didn't know him. You didn't get a telephone number. You didn't ask him for any identification. You could have said, listen, I want to give this to you, but you have your ID on it so I can take down your name and your phone number in case you don't hook up with us so that she can get in touch with you. Nothing. You take the backpack and you say, here, take it, give it to her. She's supposed to be at 5:30. She's not here at 5:30. It's no longer my responsibility. The law doesn't give you that right, Ms. Ale. The law says you have to exercise ordinary care. And unless you did that, unless you got this man's identification information, his telephone number, a place where he could be contacted so that in case that they couldn't get together, she would have some way of contacting him, not just a man who was wearing a shirt that indicated he worked there.
Well, I had no way of contacting her.
You did not exercise ordinary care. You added up the things in the backpack?
Yes.
What did it come to?
$978.
Can I see the bills, please?
Okay, I have receipts from my place of employment where
Can I
bought
see
them.
it, please?
Your Honor, may I say something?
Yes.
The previous place where we both worked, we had special deals that we were able to purchase from there. We sold a lot of high-end camping items. We also returned a lot of them as well, and were able to resell those items. Employees were able to go to those sales for employees only the night before they were open to the public and purchase those items for extremely discountable prices.
I have claimed nothing from those purchases.
So all that I want to say is that I don't know what was in the backpack. The backpack was put in my car. I took the backpack out of my car, but we were able to purchase items for an extremely discounted
And that's
rate.
irrelevant in this case because...
Well, just a second.
Okay.
It's not irrelevant if that's not what you paid for them.
Exactly.
Okay, and what you're testifying to under oath is that you paid $978 for these items. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, and I have receipts for the biggest ticket items.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $978. That's all. Mr. and Mrs. Taub, and I assume this is your daughter.
Right.
Who, according to your complaint, is entering law school.
I just finished law school, actually. and
Just
took the
finished
bar.
law school.
Yeah.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck. According to your complaint, you purchased this car for her. You a neighbor of the defendants? Do you live across the street from each other, or was she just visiting a neighbor?
I was visiting.
She was visiting a neighbor of yours, and her daughter got into her car and either backed or moved forward, and her car hit your car, causing some damage. Do you have pictures of the damage?
We do.
I'd like to see it, please. Where did you go to law school, Ms. Taub?
Golden Gate University in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is the tire on the back. I couldn't figure out what it was. It looked like a satellite.
It's a Honda 2001 SUV with a spare tire that's on the back of the tail.
Now I got it. How old are you?
I just turned 13.
When did this happen?
August 14th.
What time of the day or evening did you go out and get into this car?
Like the afternoon.
Whose car did you get into?
My mom's.
Why?
Because we were about to go home.
Who gave you the keys to the car?
My mom's purse was in my grandma's house, and I knew she would forget it, so I had her purse on my shoulder.
So you had your mother's purse on your shoulder. You took the keys?
Yes.
Why did you start the car?
Because it was a really hot day, and I wanted to turn the air conditioning on so it would get cool in the car when we were driving.
But you hit their car. How did that happen?
Because I didn't know the car was in gear, and I didn't know it would move, and when I put the keys in the ignition and turned it, it jumped forward because the car was in, or lunged forward because the car was in gear.
Tell me your first name.
Kimberly.
Have you ever put the key in the car before? Kimberly? Have you
yeah.
ever? Where were you when you put the key in the car before?
The key in my mom's car or someone else's car?
In your mom. Let's try your mom's car.
At our house, just putting them in.
For what reason?
I don't know. Just because.
Where did you get the keys from when you just because put it in the ignition?
From in her car, because she always puts her purse in the car.
Has your mother ever said to you, don't take the keys out of my car and don't start the car?
Yes.
Hmm?
Yes.
So why do you do it?
Because I didn't listen to her.
Right. So now, Kimberly, your mom gave you her pocketbook or you took it?
I took it.
And did you tell her you were going outside to wait for her?
Well, we all went outside. Me and my older sister, her boyfriend, and my mom.
So your mother saw that you had her pocketbook?
I don't know if she saw I had it, but...
Well, she didn't leave her pocketbook in the house, did she? You were all getting ready to go. Don't speak to her. So, Kimberly, these people are in their house not doing anything. Their car is sitting on the street in a legally parked space, and you get in the car, and you start the car, and you lunge forward, and you damage their car. Who do you think is responsible?
Me.
Great!
But...
Just a second. Great! Now I'll hear your butt.
But I didn't. It's not like I purposely tried to hit their car.
That's why they call it an accident.
Yeah.
Whose fault is it?
Mine.
Right. And if you were an adult, you would have to pay for it, right?
Right.
Because it was an accident that was your fault. Even though it wasn't purposeful, you didn't get into the car with a view towards damaging somebody else's property. That's why we call it an accident. But since you're 12 and not responsible under the law, so I can't make a judgment against you, I have to make a judgment against you. Right? Perfect. And we understand each other. How much did it cost to fix it?
Well, we haven't gotten it fixed yet.
What's your estimate?
$945, close to $950.
$945. Yeah. How many estimates do you have?
We have two. The one I like, though, the brunt of the damage was done on this wheel cover. It's cockeyed. And what the mechanic said to me made sense.
Don't tell me what the mechanic said to you. Just let me see the two estimates.
Sure. Judge Judy, can I tell you how it really happened?
Sure.
Are you interested? Okay.
Sure, I am interested. Okay. Always interested if somebody's not telling me the truth.
Okay. Well, I was reading. It was around
I don't care what you were doing.
5 o'clock. Quiet. I hear noise outside. Like, I thought there were drunken kids outside before I even saw them, just by the noise element and how they were giggling and laughing.
Let's go. I have other things to do today.
And I see the two kids. They talk to a fella, and I figured, well, you can't stop kids from being on the street. I went back to read a book. About a minute later, I looked out again. I just got a gut feeling nothing good was going to come of this. I see her get into the car, sans pocketbook, no pocketbook. And the other, her girlfriend, was egging her on. And they were both
What do you mean? Don't
laughing.
tell me she was egging her on. What did
Do
you
it,
say?
do it. You're not going to do it. Do it. You're not going to do it. I know you're not going to do it. And they were both laughing. I mean, really laughing. And now I'm glued to the window because this car it doesn't even have a paint job. It's like a black matte primer.
I got it.
And then she talked to a fella in a truck. I think maybe she's 16, so
Whatever.
I thought she's going to back out and take off.
Whatever.
But what she did was put it in gear and accelerate. It was such a loud noise.
She didn't do it on purpose. It was an accident. She didn't mean to hurt your car. She didn't mean to hurt her mother's car. She had no business being in a car. She had no business being in possession of the car keys.
Right.
Her mother's statement is she has trouble with her. She can't watch her 24/7, therefore it's not her fault. That's pretty much what you said in your statement. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, as between you and these poor people, you're responsible for the damage your daughter does. And if I were you, I'd have her do a whole bunch of something, babysitting, whatever it is.
I already do babysit.
Well, what do you do with the money that you make from babysitting?
Use it, like go to the mall with my friends.
Why don't you give it to your mother so that you can help pay for this property damage that you caused? Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $742.47, which is the amount of the lower estimate. That's all. Step out. Take responsibility for what you do. That's all.
Thank you.
The complaint that I read, you rented an apartment from Miss Bowman.
Yes.
When did you rent the apartment from her?
The summer of 2004.
July or August?
I'm not sure of the date.
When did he rent the apartment, Miss Bowman?
In the fall time of 2004.
Do we have a month?
Yeah, it was in November, actually.
Does that sound right?
That sounds about right.
And then, according to you, Mr. Graham, you were incarcerated for a period of time, and you claimed that Miss Bowman stole some of the property that was in your apartment when you were there. Miss Bowman says she did not do that. She says that your friend Gail, with whom you are currently living, who lives in the apartment complex, she took your property. She has no knowledge of your property. She did take a couple of things that she says she had loaned to you when you moved in. Those were bookshelves.
Correct.
And what else?
And a desk.
And a desk. Mm-hmm. Those are the two things that you indicate
I
here.
had many other things there that belonged to me, but I did not take them.
Bookshelves and a desk were the only two things that you removed from the apartment.
Correct.
Now, Mr. Graham, when were you incarcerated?
On the 22nd of May.
How long were you in jail?
40 days.
For what?
Drug paraphernalia possession.
What items do you claim that Ms. Bowman took from your apartment?
Couch, 2 couches, bedroom set, laptop computer, a variety of miscellaneous electrical items. I'm an electrician.
Like what?
Lights, ceiling fans, outlets.
You mean that weren't in the walls? That
Not
were
in the
just
walls.
there?
Yes, just there. Yeah.
So, tools of your trade. What else?
I had a variety of things that I had a list of, and unfortunately I didn't bring the list with me, but it was...
All right, Mr. Graham, what proof do you have that Miss Bowman, who denies that she took these things from your apartment, what proof do you have that she took them?
Well, besides the fact that my friend and neighbor was there when it was being taken, I also have some photos, Your Honor, that the neighbor who lived in the apartment across the driveway happened to take.
I'd like to see them.
Yes.
Who has a blue truck?
Nobody I know.
The truck is purple, Your Honor.
Purple truck.
My brother.
I'm going to ask you some questions. I better get a reasonable answer. Your last name is?
Bowman.
How old are you, sir?
I'm 39 years old.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a painter.
Of houses?
Houses. I do maintenance. My sister owns rental properties.
So you work for your sister?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you employed on an annual, or does she pay you periodically?
Periodically, hourly.
How long have you worked for your sister?
Here in the last 4 months.
Prior to that?
I worked as a forklift operator, supervisor.
You took your purple truck to Mr. Graham's house that he was renting, and you and your sister removed certain property. Is that correct?
My sister had called me at the end of May.
I have pictures. I just want you to know that I have pictures. So let's not play with each other.
Yes, ma'am.
I asked you a specific question. I said, did you go to the house and remove certain property that was in the house that Mr. Graham was renting?
The property that belonged to my sister.
The house that Mr. Graham was renting?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
What property did you remove, sir?
There was a desk.
You'll be very careful. Desk.
Yeah.
Go
Shelf.
ahead.
Old lamp.
A lamp?
Mm-hmm.
What else?
There was a few boxes, miscellaneous boxes.
Boxes. Say nothing, Miss Bowman. Boxes. What about tables, sir? Did you remove any little tables? Did you remove any little tables, sir?
Not that I recall, I didn't. Gail was there with her truck, too. In the process,
I'm talking about a purple truck.
Yes, Your Honor.
That would be yours.
Yes, it would.
What color is your truck? Brown. Did you remove any upholstered pieces from the house, Mr. Bowman?
No,
you know what upholstered pieces are?
Rugs, upholstery.
I didn't say rugs. Rugs aren't upholstered pieces, sir. I'm talking upholstered pieces, usually chairs and sofas.
There was one sofa.
One sofa. Let's just get there. One sofa.
One sofa.
All right. So you removed a sofa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were some boxes. How many boxes were there, Mr. Bowman?
I would say 2 to 3.
And with your hands, show me how big the boxes were, sir.
I would say the boxes were that size.
What did you do with the boxes?
The boxes got thrown in the garbage along with the rest of the kitchen utensils, all the food that was spoiled and rotten.
Where did you throw them?
Right there in the alley, in the garbage.
I'm asking you about the things that you put in your truck, sir.
Yeah, them items, them boxes, all was garbage. We were cleaning the apartment out to rent it out to another tenant while Mr. Graham had been in jail.
What did you do with the sofa, sir?
The sofa went down to our uncle's house, who said that he was going to use the sofa, which was...
Just answer my questions. I asked you what you did with the sofa. Sofa you brought to your uncle's house. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
What did you do with the lamp?
The lamp was also with my uncle.
2 little end tables. Those go to your uncle's house, too, with the lamp?
Yes, Your Honor.
See how easy that was, Mr. Bowman?
Yes, ma'am.
Sit down. You got my drift.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I'm 10 paces ahead of you, Miss Bowman. Your brother has just indicated, marginally, that your uncle has been the recipient of largesse in a sofa, end tables, and a lamp that we know about. That is not a desk and bookshelves. We understand each other?
Yes, Your Honor.
These photographs don't show a laptop computer, fans, tools, and other stuff. But, Miss Bowman, you took more out of his house than the desk that you let him borrow and the bookshelves. You know how I know that? Because he told me so. You lied when you told me that the only thing you removed from the house was a desk and bookshelves.
I didn't stay the entire time, so I don't know what else was there.
You lied when you told me that the only thing you removed were desks and bookshelves. He works for you. He is your employee. Anything that he did is attributable to you. He is your agent.
Gail, when I went in, Gail said, I'm going to pack up all Benjamin's stuff. Whatever's left there, I would have to go out to the dump. We moved 2 couches out to the dump.
Listen to me very carefully, madam. That could have been something that you told me. That you took, I'm speaking, that you took other items from the house, but you took them from the house because they were not being used. Your uncle would have put them to good use, so you took them because he was in jail and Gail told you to. You could have told me that. That's not what you told me. You told me that the only thing you removed from the house was a desk and bookshelves. And that, madam, was not true.
I didn't witness them taking anything else. I just asked about the shelf and the desk. And I've got pictures of Benjamin's car.
I'm going to explain something to you from my perspective.
Okay.
You're not telling the truth. Now, I could say that in many different ways. You see how dry-mouthed you get when you lie? When you lie, your mouth gets really, really dry, Miss Bowman. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000. That's all. Step out. According to the complaint that I've read, the defendant used to be a boyfriend of yours. He is no longer a boyfriend of yours, but you claim that after you had already broken up, he vandalized your car on 2 separate occasions. Mr. Harrison says that he did no such thing. When did you end your relationship with him?
Approximately around July 15th of 2005.
How long had you been together?
Approximately about 1.5 years.
Did you ever live together?
Yes, ma'am.
For how long?
Approximately 1 year.
Did you live in your house or his house?
My home.
Who do you live with?
I live with myself and my children.
How old are your children?
I have a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
When did he move out?
Probably around June of 2005. And
why?
It wasn't working. I had a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I felt like life was taking me in other directions, and I felt like I couldn't do all the things I needed to with him. He was becoming very controlling, very possessive.
Was he working when he moved in with you?
Yes, he was.
Did he remain employed during the year that he lived there?
No.
He did not?
He did not.
When did he lose his job?
Approximately 4 months after we lived together.
Were you working?
Yes.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a full-time student at IUSB, and I also tutor at Jackson Middle School.
Okay. When was the first incident of your car being vandalized?
September 15th.
Tell me what happened.
That day I actually had surgery at St. Joe Medical Center, and after that my friend Christine, she's right here, her and I and Jesse Harrison, we all went to my friend Heather's house.
How did he get involved with you on that day if you had broken up 2 months before?
I called him from my home and I told him that I was having surgery that day, and he asked hospital. And I told him I didn't care, but I really, inside I felt like I needed him for support. He's been my main support person. And then when I was at the hospital and they were taking me to the pre-op, he showed up.
Did he drive you home?
No.
Who took you home?
Christine drove her car, and she drove me and her to Heather's, and he drove my truck. And when I left the hospital, I was upset that he was driving my truck. I did not want him to do that because he has no license. And when we got to Heather's house, we had this argument, and he got mad at me because I didn't want him to drive the truck. And he said, well, I was there for you at the hospital. And I told him, you didn't have to be there for me at the hospital. I had somebody else who could have been.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Shh. Come back to you. Go ahead.
And at that point, he just yelled, and these were his words verbatim. He said, who, Petey? And then he kicked my truck and threw a flower pot at it. And then he ran between 2 houses, and that's when I saw an officer on a bike, and I stopped him, and he made a police report for me.
Okay. When was the next time that your car was vandalized?
The next accident was on the 16th of September, 2005.
Right.
Again, at that time, I was still under medication for my surgery. My doctor told me that I needed to do bed rest for a week. At that time, I went over to my friend Christine's house. Jesse was there, and...
How did he get there?
He drove me.
So you called him again?
I had to take my kids.
Just a second. So after you saw him kick your truck and throw a flower pot at it and report it to the police, you called him again to pick you up?
Your Honor.
Just a second. Is that what you're telling me? Don't give me an excuse. That's a yes.
Yes, ma'am.
When had you called him?
You know, I'm not...
That morning? The evening after? When?
I think it was the next morning.
Where were your children?
My children were at my friend Christine's house. I needed to take them some supplies, and I wasn't allowed to drive.
So you called him and said what?
I asked him if he could take me to take Christine some supplies.
And what did he say?
Yes.
You didn't say to him, I reported you to the police yesterday?
No, he knew. He saw the police. Why he was running.
No, It's not true.
He doesn't know how the police got there, madam. I'm asking you whether you told him that you had called the police the day before.
No, I did not tell him that I called the police the day before.
You just said, do me a favor, pick me up and take me over. How was he supposed to pick you up and take you over to Christine's house?
I asked him to take me in my truck.
You asked him to drive?
Yes.
So it was okay for him to drive without a license when you asked him to, but you were annoyed that he drove without a license the day before.
The day before, I did not feel comfortable being with him.
That's not my question. You told me a moment ago, madam, that the day before you had an argument with him because you didn't want him to drive your car because he didn't have a license. That's what you told me. But the next day, because you needed to use him for something else, you told him to come to your house, pick you up, use your car, and take you to your friend Christine's house.
That is correct. My children needed supplies.
They needed water?
Diapers.
Is she incapable?
She had 5 kids at her house at that time, and she couldn't leave.
License, diapers. License, diapers. You used him. Mr. Harrison, after you went back over there, her car was vandalized again, sir. Were you angry on both of those occasions?
No, I didn't. I wasn't angry. It's just that she was just running her mouth, or she wanted to go in the house, and I didn't want to stay there.
Why don't you work?
I was working for her brother, detailing cars at his car lot, until she came up there starting trouble, and now I just go from car lot time to time and detail cars.
Is that how you support yourself?
That's
Yes,
not
ma'am.
true.
What does he do?
Actually, he was working for my brother, and he got fired from my brother's car lot because he was being obsessive and controlling, and my brother didn't want to be a part of it. At this time, he doesn't go from car lot to car lot detailing. He
That's
frequently
not true.
sells stereos.
Ms. Totson, although it looks to me as if butter would melt in your mouth and that you're a very intelligent woman, you're also a user. You used him like a rubber band. You say, get out, then come back, come to the hospital, I need your support, don't use my truck. Well, today you can't use my truck, tomorrow you can use my truck because I have to go someplace. And what I'm telling you is you can't toy with somebody's emotions like that. That's unacceptable behavior for an adult, madam. If you needed somebody additionally to give you moral support in the hospital and you had already kicked him out of your house, you don't call him again for the day.
Well, Your Honor, my mom is deceased. My best friend was watching my kids. Who else loves me? I know he does.
Just a second. Well, that's using him. That's exactly what I'm saying to you. That's exactly what I'm saying to you. He loves you, but you don't love him. So if what you're doing is toying with his emotions, because he's saying, I need you.
Your Honor,
let's just listen. I need you. Now I'm finished with you. I need you again. Now I'm finished with you. That's cruel. And if what you're telling me is he loves you, and you know that, that makes you even the more cruel. You get me? What year is your truck?
My truck is in 1998.
And you have pictures of the damage that he did to your truck?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see it, please. And your brother has a body repair shop?
No, actually, my brother has a car lot. He sells
car
used
lot.
cars.
Does he also repair cars?
No.
No. That's too bad. Well, I get some stuff there to detail it a little bit. And you could probably get that dent pulled out by somebody for a couple of $100. Nowhere near $1,700. You have to learn to be a nicer person, madam.
I understand, Your Honor.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff. Not for $1,700, for $300. Get your car fixed for that. That's all. Step out.
Feet. And for stealing software from her computer.
Miss Grunwald, this used to be your boyfriend, and according to the complaint that I read, that is both yours and your mother's, you lived with him for a period of time. When was that?
He moved in May of 2005, and then he moved all of his stuff out by the mid-January of 2006.
Moved out all of his stuff from an apartment that you shared together?
That is correct.
Now, according to this complaint, you took out a loan for him.
That is correct.
And you claim that he hasn't repaid the full amount of the loan, and your mother is here because she says that the two of you paid off that loan together after you broke up. You also claim that he took some software that didn't belong to him when he left.
That is correct.
I don't know what you're angry about that brings you to court 2 years later, but I'm sure you're going to tell me. When did you take out the loan?
I took out the loan in May of 2005.
What was it for?
To pay off the rest of the loan for his car that he was unable to pay off.
What was your car payment, sir?
It was $164 a month. I sold my...
How many cars did the two of you have when you lived together?
One.
Were you both using your car?
We were using her car.
So, when you say you had one car, this car payment was for whose car?
My old car. I sold it before I moved in with her.
Why did you do that?
Because I wouldn't have been able to make payments on my insurance and the car and pay for half of the rent with her.
So you sold that car, but you still had a payoff on the loan.
Yes.
What was the amount of the loan that she co-signed for?
I don't know what the amount was because she took some money out for herself, too, to pay off credit cards.
That, Your Honor, is a lie.
Well, I don't know about that. Let's see what the...
Well, this is strictly for the car payment.
Let me see. Let me see.
That is the exact amount that I had taken out on the loan.
Okay, let's see. $1,000. Is that right?
And then there was some interest on it, too. The total was $1,081.56.
How is that correct when I paid off my bank like $980?
The amount she received was $1,000. And how much was the amount you paid off? $986?
Yes.
Well, then maybe she took out $14 and paid her own bills.
That's fine.
Now, you then stayed together 8 months after this loan was taken out.
Yes.
Mr. Thone says that he made payments. It's what he was required to do every month for 9 months. Is that what you're saying, sir?
Yes.
Who did you give the money to?
Her.
Your Honor, that's
How?
a lie.
Shh. Did you have a joint checking account?
No, we did not.
Were you working?
Yes, I was.
All the time?
Yes, I was.
Your Honor, that's a lie.
If you say it again, I'm going to dismiss your case and you're going to leave. Do you understand?
I understand.
How much was the rent?
It was $292.50 a month.
And you paid half?
Yes, I did.
Who did you pay the money to?
Paid it to Jen, or else I'd write out the check to her landlord.
Okay, so May, first payment is due.
June was the very first payment. June 2005 on the 15th was the first payment that was due.
Okay. I want you to show me that between June 2005 and December 2006 that you personally paid the loan. Looks like that these payments were made regularly.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Each and every month.
Each and every month, right on time.
Right. And he says that while you were together, he gave you the money for these.
He gave me the money for the first 4 months that he had a steady job. After that, it always came out of my account, and he gave me either check or cash. It depended on...
Well, how am I supposed to tell the difference between what you paid and what he paid? The first payment is due in June. June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. Then he left in December. So that would be 3 months. Did you pay anything on this loan after you moved out, sir? You say in December?
I paid one more payment in December.
Show me.
I don't have any proof of it.
Well, how could you not have proof, sir?
Because my account was closed down 2 years ago.
See, she's got all of her accounts.
Yes, that's because I paid her with either a check or my cash, and she put it into her account and then paid for it.
No, but I understand what you're saying, sir.
Yes.
So you can get your records. These go back to 2005.
When did she get them?
I don't care when she got them. Where are yours?
I don't have them.
In September of 2006 was his last payment, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Why would I not pay the last couple of months that we were together, though?
All you have to do is show me.
Jennifer Grunwald claims ex-boyfriend Ryan Thone owes for an unpaid loan to get back on his feet and for stealing software from her computer.
Show me that you made the payment. It's easy, right?
How can she prove that it was her money and not my money, though?
Because this bank statement is her bank statement.
Yes,
it's
and
in
I
her
was
name.
giving her
it's
money.
in her name. And you're telling me that you gave her money. So all you have to do is show me a check made out to her, which you don't have.
No,
a
ma'am.
bank statement where you took out from an ATM or a cash machine or at the teller $90 on the 15th of every month and gave it to her. Something, sir. So
Well,
I
there
have
was
to
some-
make a judgment.
Well, I understand that, but there was some times where I get my check from work, I go to the bank, I cash my check, and I just keep out some of the money for whatever expenses, fine, whatever, and
she
then I give her some of the
acknowledges
money.
that 4 months' worth of payments you actually made. June, July, August, and September. Can you explain to me why, sir, you think that after all of this time she is pursuing this money if you don't owe it to her?
I have no idea. I know that her dad's business is getting closed down, and he's going back. Maybe they're hard up for cash. I don't know.
They're not that hard up for this cash, sir.
Well, I don't know why they do it after me being without her for a year and a half.
I don't know either, but all I can tell you is the last payment that was made on this account was May of '06. Do you have any proof that you made any payments in May of '06?
No, I do not.
Do you have any proof that you made any payments in April of '06?
I don't have any proof of any payments that I made.
Well, that's a problem, sir. So what do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to do for
It's
you?
my word against her word.
No,
She
she
can
has.
say what she
This is
wants.
evidence.
That's fine.
This is evidence.
Okay, well then go back to the first month on June when I paid her. What did that come out of? Did that come out of her?
I don't know,
account?
sir, but all I'm telling you is that there were payments made on this account in 2006.
Okay, and I also never signed anything with her either.
April of 2006, when you were no longer together. That's not 2 years ago. That's for you to get whatever account you had and demonstrate that you made any payments on this account. According to you, you weren't even together for 9 months because the first payment was due in June.
I moved
you
out. I was living with a friend.
When did you move out in December?
I got all my stuff out the first couple of days in December because I stayed the weekend
So then you wouldn't
before.
even have made December's payment. So you would have June, July, August, September, October, November. That's only 6 months, sir. You swore that you made 9 months worth of payments at $90 each. You want me to show you what you said?
What's that?
What word didn't you understand? I said, do you want me to show you what you said? You said, I made 9 payments of $90 to Jennifer.
Yep.
When? You just told me you moved out the first few days in December. When did you make
April,
$90?
May, June, July,
Not
August,
May!
September.
There's no May, sir.
Yes,
Here-
there is. because
No,
I gave
sir,
her
there's
money.
no May.
She took it out in May.
First payment, according to your contract, is due June 15th, 2006.
Okay, contract, but I never signed anything.
Your Honor, I know.
Okay.
And she's a cheater too.
Excuse me?
And kicks people out. Yeah.
I would have kicked you out a long time ago. But get over the software. I don't even want to hear about software.
Okay, Your Honor. Your Honor, I have one more thing to show you.
Go ahead.
I have Ryan's criminal record
I have to see his criminal record.
Well,
I
just
was
wanted
under
to
18
prove
at that time
dishonesty.
too.
Can I ask
and
you a
she's
question?
in law enforcement
Can I
right
ask you a
now
question?
too.
What?
So it's probably how she got that. So
You weren't losing that argument. So
I know.
why don't you just be quiet?
because I don't think it's right that she took that out.
Sue her.
I'm not going to sue her because I'm over here.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,188. Thank you. That's all.
To have his teeth fixed.
So you two people, when you were under 20, decided to take up housekeeping together, according to what I read in your complaint, and you leased an apartment. At the time you leased this apartment together, were you working?
Yes, I was working.
And how much did you earn a week?
I got $9 an hour. I'd get like about $400 or $500 every 2 weeks.
Well, is it $400 every 2 weeks or $500 every 2 weeks?
The months differed, but I know in December when we moved in, I made $1,083.10 in December. No.
In December. Did you work overtime for Christmas during that time?
I worked a little bit more hours, but...
Okay. So let's say you made $500 every 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay? And you, what kind of work were you doing?
I was a mover, and I made about, say, $350 every week.
So you made about $1,400
Yes, ma'am.
a month. And what kind of an apartment did you rent?
A one-bedroom,
How much was the rent?
$530.
When did you sign the lease?
We signed it in November, but it began December 1st, 2004.
And it was a 6-month lease?
It was a one-year lease.
How long did you live there?
I lived there until June.
So you lived there for 6 months?
Yes.
And then you moved out?
Yes.
How long did you live there?
I lived there until September 30th of this year.
So you stayed on an extra 3 months?
I'd say almost 4.
Did you pay the rent for the 4 months that you lived there?
Yes.
They're coming after you for the 2 months rent that remains on the lease after he moved out?
Yes, 2 months. He didn't pay rent.
You want him to pay those 2 months?
Yes. And also, he had porcelain veneers put on before we moved into the apartment even. And he promised he would pay me back for those when we went to Mexico to get his porcelain veneers.
How long ago was that?
That was last fall. So
A year ago?
Yes, a year ago.
Forget about it. I'm not interested in something that happened a year ago. Then you moved in together, you pulled money. Did you have a joint bank account?
Yes.
Or no?
Yes.
Yeah. Get over it, Ms. Gonzalez. Okay. Now, why do you think that he should be responsible solely for the last 2 months' rent? You moved out in June.
He promised me he would stay there until the lease was over. I told him, he didn't want to live with his parents. I said, you don't have to worry. I won't ever make you live back with your parents. As long as you stay there, you can stay there. I trust you. And he promised that he would stay there until the lease was up.
Well, didn't you promise him you were going to stay there until the lease was up when you signed the lease with him?
Yes, but until he asked me to leave, then...
He asked you to leave, why?
There was a lot of reasons. I could have left before. I stayed there to help him pay rent, and really that was the only thing I was staying for towards the end. And the moment he told me that I could leave. I was happy. He said, please leave, and I said, okay.
Because he was making everybody's life miserable.
Yes. He was.
Well, but I still don't get your position that it was okay for you to leave and stick him with the rent, but it's not okay for him to leave and stick you with the rent, or at least half of it.
I would have stayed there, but he told me that I could leave.
Miss Gonzalez, stop being a baby. Two 20-year-olds, if they're not getting along, don't stay with each other. That's why police come to houses, because people get hot-tempered and nasty stuff that goes on in people's homes when they're not getting along. So you left.
Yeah.
And he paid the rent.
Yeah, he paid the rent.
So?
And he should have continued to pay it until December. Also, he signed...
You should have continued to pay it after you left in June. Where did you go?
I went to live with my dad.
Well, if you went to live with your dad, then you had plenty of money. You should have given him
No,
half
I did
the
not
rent.
have plenty of money. I had bills.
Listen to me. You should have given him half the rent. Said, I'm leaving. Too bad it didn't work out. We shouldn't live together. I'll give you half the rent.
I have a piece of paper, though, that says he owes me $800 per month for rent and expenses, regardless of whether we're living. It doesn't say, not if Zach doesn't live there. It doesn't say any conditions on it. And so that was my guarantee that he would stay there and pay the rent, because he signed a piece of paper saying that he would.
Let me see it. I, Zachary Finney, will give $800 a month for rent or other reasons to Catherine Gonzalez for a period of 1 year from December 1st, 04 to December 1st, 05. What does that mean, sir?
To get the apartment that we moved into, I had a lease that I had prior to living there with my roommates. I had an apartment with them. I moved out, and my other roommate was supposed to take that over. He left, and that went on my credit, so I couldn't get approved. The reason I did that is the apartments asked me to do it so we could get approved to move in there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to move in there.
So this wasn't for her.
It was to get us approved to live there.
Is that right? Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
All right, give this back to her. All right, now why are they just going after you for the last 2 months of this rent, Miss Gonzalez?
Because my name was on the lease.
So he's not even liable on the lease?
No, but this piece of paper was my guarantee that he would not...
That wasn't your guarantee. That's not the reason it was signed. So the rent is $530 a month?
Yes.
Did you give them notice you were moving out, sir?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I've been paying the rent ever since she moved out. In September, we had a hurricane hit Louisiana, Katrina, and a hurricane that was going to hit Houston, Rita. Well, I'm an exterminator, and my customers started canceling, and I work off commission. If I don't work, I don't get paid. And I was out of work probably almost 2 weeks, I would say. I asked her for help, and she kept giving me a runaround about why she couldn't help me, so I just left. I wasn't going to stay there.
I got you.
Okay.
Well, in any event, you did have an agreement, and your agreement was each of you would pay half the rent. Is that your agreement when you moved in? And if there were 2 months left remaining on the lease, that means that each of you would be responsible for $530. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, you think it's fair, Mr. Finney, that you pay $530?
No, I don't.
Well, it is. It is, sir. You paid for the 4 months rent in the apartment, but you lived in the apartment for 4 months.
Yes.
And from what I gather from Miss Gonzalez, it was by mutual understanding that you left. She wasn't happy there. You weren't happy with her there. She was more than happy to leave. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, I think it's reasonable that each of you is responsible for the last 2 months that remain on this lease. And next time you decide to set up housekeeping with somebody, you better make sure it's somebody that's going to either stick it out with you, or if they're not going to stick it out with you, then you can afford to pay the rent by yourself. Do you understand?
Yes.
It's not his responsibility to pay this entire amount, nor is it yours. Anyway, judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $530. That's all. Plaintiff, you rented a car to her, a car that was registered and titled in your name, that you weren't using. You felt sorry for her, that she needed transportation. You told her she could rent it for $20 a day. It is your claim that she owes you for the rental, as well as some damage that she did to the car. Mr. LaSalle says she owes you nothing. How many cars do you rent out, Mr. Smith?
Well, I've never rented out. The proposition was I wanted to sell it to her. It was her idea to rent it.
And when did you have this conversation?
This was March 22nd in the afternoon. It was like after 1 or 2 p.m.
What kind of car is it?
It's a 1987 Cadillac Eldorado Barrett's. It's like the top-of-the-line model for that year.
Well, top-of-the-line, I was a top-of-the-line model in my year too, sir, but this car is now 20 years old.
It's in good running order. It's in good shape. I only had like 92,000 miles on it.
I'm in good shape too, but I'm still what I am. You know what I'm talking about?
I can tell.
20-year-old car is a 20-year-old car.
20-year-old car by like 2 owners. It's in
I'm not
good
telling
shape.
you how old I am, and I've only had 2 owners. That still doesn't change anything. You understand?
I understand.
What?
What? I'm supposed to say here.
Mr. Smith, I'm not saying anything bad about your car. I'm just saying it's an old car, sir.
It's an old car.
It's not an antique. It's just an old car.
But it's a Cadillac. That's
Me
different.
too. Listen, so what did you decide to do on March 22nd between 1 and 2 in the afternoon with your vintage car?
I gave defendant my phone number. She said she called me back, talk it over with her friend. She called me back in about a half hour and said, yeah, let's do a deal.
Let's do a deal?
Yeah.
What do you mean, let's do a deal?
She proposed to rent it. I proposed to sell it. She said she couldn't afford to buy it, so I said...
How much did you want it for?
$20. I wanted $700.
You wanted $700 for the car.
That's all I wanted. She agreed, and I agreed we'll rent it for $20 a day. She went home to talk to her friend. I went home to download a rental car agreement off the internet. I had the paperwork downloaded. I picked them up, and she gave me $20 for the first day. We signed the paperwork. I gave her the keys.
Let me see the paperwork. So you just wanted the car for a week, madam?
No, ma'am.
Did you sign this agreement?
Yeah, when I met Barry on the 22nd, he told me he had cars for rental, 3 cars. I told him I had to talk to my girlfriend and that I would call him back. I did that. We went to go look at the cars. I rented 1 car.
It says here that you're renting this car, and it says what car it is, from March 22nd to March 29th.
He did all the receipts. I also have those. But I wanted to purchase the car. It wasn't rental. And I started renting because I was not working at the time.
All I asked you was, you were supposed to return this vehicle on March 30th. That's what you signed. That's your name.
Yeah, I signed that.
Did you return the car on March 30th?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because I made more payments towards the car. I was buying the car from him.
Did you have a subsequent agreement?
No. We kept doing the rental contracts. But I would pay him more than going towards the purchase of the car.
Show me. First of all, how long did you keep the car?
Until April 14th.
You kept it for an additional 2 weeks. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
That's not correct, Your Honor. She took 2 rental agreements out. She didn't bring the car back. I had to go to her to get the payments and check on the car because she had moved like 15 miles from me. It began like, she was paying me like 3 days in a row. She paid me. At the beginning of the first contract, she paid me the $20.
How many days did she keep the car, sir?
She had the car like 22 days. From the 22nd of March to the
14th of April.
Right.
22 days. And let's do this so that I don't make a mistake. 22 times 20 equals $440. So that's what she should have paid you.
That's correct.
And that's what you would like, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How much did you pay him?
I paid him more than the receipts that he has given.
How much do you claim that you paid him?
Can my witness come up?
No! How much do you claim that you paid him?
Almost $600 for the car. That was supposed to be bought for $700.
Almost $600.
Almost $600.
Good. And how many receipts do you have, and how much do they total?
$420.
Let me see them, please. I have $400.
If you look, there might be one with the same date and the same amount on it. I think I accidentally wrote 2 receipts for 1 payment.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's
This is a different one.
$80.
This
One
is
is
a
the
different
white,
one.
yeah.
Right, I'm deducting $80 because it covers the same period
Right.
from 4-3.
I accidentally gave her the wrong
Absolutely
copy
right.
and everything.
Absolutely right. Minus 80, because she gave me a duplicate, equals 320, and she was supposed to give you 440. Ms. LaSalle, that's what you got. You gave him $320.
Can I speak, Your Honor?
Sure.
He just wrote out receipts. When he came to pick up the vehicle, he went home and just wrote out receipts. The only one receipt that me and Barry had actually made was the yellow receipt. So he just made up receipts for whatever he wanted to make out the receipts. I had the car almost paid for.
Just a second. Almost is not good enough. The only proof, and it's proof that you gave me of what you paid for, are these. That's what you gave me. And it says that you're $120 short. What else, sir?
Friday the 13th, she said, come pick up the car. The car's on empty, it's at her house. She was supposed to bring the car back. So I get a friend of mine, we go up to Jeannie's house, get the car, and I said, when are you gonna have my money? She said, next Friday. We took off, went home. I called her the following Friday. She's not gonna pay me my money, I'm not gonna get any money. So I gave her another week, the 27th, which is the day I filed the lawsuit. Jeannie, am I gonna get my money? You ain't getting nothing, do what you gotta do. And that's when I went to the courthouse. The night while I was driving it back, like I said, it's 15 miles, the front end was shaky. It's a front-wheel drive car, and it's dark. It's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I couldn't see anything, so the next morning, I went out and inspected the car. The right front tire is very low. I take it to a mechanic, have him look at it and get new tires, and they gave me an estimate of what the damages was because the front end suspension was damaged. I've got damages on the car. The car wasn't brought back in the same state that I gave it to her. And
Fine. You wanted to sell the car, sir, for $700. Listen to me.
I wanted to sell it.
Shh, look at me. You wanted to sell the car for $700?
Correct.
You're going to get $440 for her. Use of the car, you're a couple of $100 short of what you wanted to sell it for. Where is the car now?
I have the car.
Do you drive it?
Yeah, I drive it.
Do you rent it to other people?
No, I don't.
But you use it yourself?
Yes, I do.
So look at what you have. You wanted to sell the car for $700. You're going to get $440, which means that you're just a few dollars off from what you wanted to sell it for, and you have your car. Isn't that great?
Sounds good.
Be happy. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $120, which is what she owes you. Thank you very much. That's all.
Says Benny was in danger of going to jail for the second time.
How old are you, Miss Torres?
23.
And you, sir?
25.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a professional esthetician.
What about you, Mr. DeJesus? What do you do?
Electrician.
How many children do you have, Miss Torres?
Just one.
How old?
He's 5.
Does he live with you?
Yes, he does.
Who supports him?
I do.
How many children do you have, Mr. DeJesus?
One, Your Honor.
Where does that child live?
He lives with his mother right now.
And who supports your child?
Well, I pay child support every month right now, and she has physical custody of him.
Do you pay child support for Miss Torres' child?
No, ma'am.
Because it's not your child.
Yes, ma'am.
It would be stupid for you to pay child support for Miss Torres' child because the child doesn't belong to you.
Yes.
Child has a mother and a father,
Yeah.
and the mother and father should pay child support.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is what your lawsuit is about, Miss Torres. You and Mr. DeJesus had the unfortunate experience of being engaged to each other for a period of time. And while you were so involved, Mr. DeJesus fell behind in his child support, among other things. But this is what your lawsuit is about. And it is your claim that you made a loan to him so that he wouldn't go to jail to pay his child support.
Yes.
Now, Mr. DeJesus says she paid the child support. You acknowledge.
Yes, I did. Yes, she paid it for me.
But it was a gift. Now do you understand my preliminary questions?
Oh, yes. Clear as a bell.
So I asked you a couple of seconds ago, Mr. DeJesus, you wouldn't pay child support for her child, right?
Yeah.
Because the child's not yours.
Nope.
Child has a mother and a father.
Yep.
Parents are supposed to pay for their own children,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And if you don't pay child support for your child, you're a bum.
Yeah, basically.
Perfect. How much did you give him to pay the child support?
$2,400.
And how much time was he facing in jail if he didn't pay the child support?
2 years.
Ah.
It would have been his second time going to jail for not paying his child support.
That's a bum times 2. Now, Miss Torres, I mean, he's easy to take care of. You know, I could take care of 10 of him with this pinky. 10 of him. My question to you is, you don't look like a marginal person. You look somebody in the eye when you speak to them. You have a child that you support, lives with you. What are you doing with him? I mean, are things so desperate out there that you got to pick a bum who's got one child and has fallen behind twice in child support to the extent that the second time they were going to put him in jail for 2 years? You're going to get your $2,400 because that's what he owes you. Because he doesn't want to pay for your child and you shouldn't have to pay for his. Right, Mr. DeJesus?
Yeah,
right.
It wasn't $2,400. She only gave me $1,000. The rest of it I raised myself.
Show me the $2,400, Miss Torres.
She knows that it was $1,000 she gave me. This is the check. And the rest of it was raised
This is the check
up
that
and
I
all
had
put
signed.
together.
This is where it came out of my son's bank account.
Because the money
And
was
it got-
deposited
no,
in there
it
so that
was
we could
not.
write a check out for it because I
And
can't
I
get
got
cash.
my money in there.
She knows that the reason the money was deposited was so that I could write a check out, because I had to have record of the money that I'm paying.
No,
for
and
my
I
child
have
support.
a piece of paper.
Well, no time around the withdrawal of this $2,400, sir, did anybody put in $1,500?
It was sporadically put in. It was $200 here. As I kept raising the money, I would put the money into the account because the court date was coming. When the court date
You should
came,
have kept better
we
records.
deposited.
What kind of an excuse did you give to the mother of your child every time you didn't send money?
I mean,
Checks in the mail.
We both spoke. We speak every time we see each other. She knows if I'm late and when she's going to get her money.
Let me ask you this question, Mr. DeJesus. Yesterday, did you eat dinner?
Yeah.
And you have a cell phone?
No.
Have a regular phone?
No, actually, no. Thanks to Miss Torres here, I don't have nowhere to live actually right now.
I was paying for everything for you.
She took my car.
Miss Torres,
threw my clothes away.
Does he have a problem that's eating up the money that he's earning from being an electrician?
From what I'm concerned, I don't know.
You
But
don't know?
when I met him, he did have problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
All I'm doing is telling you, I know. And you have a responsibility because you have a 5-year-old child. You're only supposed to bring the right kind of people into their lives. You got it?
Yes.
Judge for the plaintiff for the amount of $2,400. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Agreed to pick up the tab.
Mr. Borges, I gather from your complaint that you and Miss Grote were friends. You both are single parents, is that right?
That's correct.
And it is your claim that Miss Grote accompanied you and your daughter on a trip to Mexico.
Correct.
And it is your claim that she owes you money for expenses for that trip.
Correct.
The defendant, who acknowledges she went on the trip with you, says that you had an agreement that as long as she paid for the airline tickets for both herself and her daughter, you would cover the rest of the expenses while you were in Mexico.
Correct.
How old is your daughter?
She's 13.
And Mr. Borges, you have?
A 13-year-old daughter.
And these 13-year-olds go to school together? Are they friends?
Correct.
Is that how you know each other?
Correct.
I understand that you were out for dinner with Miss Grote at a time when you were discussing this trip.
Yes, we...
So my first question is, was this the first time you and the defendant had been out to dinner together?
Yes.
How did that come about?
On the phone and wanted to know if I'd like to go to dinner with her.
And you had not dated before?
No.
So now, Mr. Borges, tell me about the conversation that you had at dinner about this vacation that you were planning, and I understand Ms. Grote was planning for her daughter as well.
There was approximately 9 of us going to Mexico.
Who was going?
Me, my witness, Will, Perry and his kids, my daughter.
So it was single dads?
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about the conversation you had with Ms. Grote.
Well, the conversation got brought up that we were going to Mexico and she and her daughter were going to Seattle and they would like to go, and I explained to her where we were going to stay, what the costs were. She said she couldn't afford it if she went by herself, so she was going to have a friend of hers come along with her so she could afford the hotel room.
Is that this person?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, it came down to the point where we had to pay for our hotel rooms. Darla stated she didn't have the money. She was wanting to pay her hotel when we got there. Well, the hotel wouldn't work it that way. So I explained to her that I would pay the hotel room, but she was going to pay me back when she got to Mexico. And she agreed.
How much was the room?
Their share was $700, $350 for her and $350 for a friend.
What happened when you got to Mexico?
She didn't have a credit card to put down on the room. I put my credit card down on the room. Told her don't charge anything on the room. I mean, promptly started charging things on the room.
Like what?
Just long distance phone calls, Cosmic Bar, towel deposits, things of that nature.
Can I see that, please? What do you do for a living, Miss Grote?
I'm a regional trainer.
And you don't have a credit card?
I have a credit card, but not that high of a limit on it.
What's the limit on your credit card?
It's only at 1,000, and it was full.
What happened next, Mr. Borges?
So I went up to the hotel desk, told them that they needed to shut my credit card off, and at this point I knew she didn't have any money, so I told them that I wasn't going to be responsible for paying the bill.
What made you think she didn't have any money?
Well, it all started at the airport when the taxi came. They didn't have any money. You know, it was just borrowing money. She borrowed money from Will the entire trip.
Who paid for the cab? I'm sorry.
She got mad the first night because she had to pay for her own dinner. Next day I just said, you know what, I'm not going to deal with it because she's upset because where we went to dinner she said was too expensive. It got into a big argument at the pool that afternoon. I was talking to somebody at the pool. She got upset. Her friend got upset. She thought I asked somebody else out for dinner that evening, which I hadn't.
Was there any discussion with Ms. Groth that the two of you were going on that trip as a couple?
Oh, we discussed that was not the case, because
That was?
not the case.
When did you discuss that?
The first evening at
Well,
the
tell me
restaurant.
about that discussion.
I told her if she was going to go on the vacation, it was a single dad's deal, that she had to understand that this wasn't going to be a romantic trip.
Okay, now I'll hear you.
We did go to dinner the first night and discussed the trip. I had actually told him I was going to Seattle with my daughter over the 4th of July. We did not talk about money or anything that night. About a week or two after that dinner, we had kept talking about going to Cabo.
You mean you were talking on the telephone?
Talking on the telephone.
But you only went out for dinner once.
One time. So we had talked about it, and I says, well, what are we talking as? And he came back with a price, I think it was $1,800 or $1,900. And I told him, I made it very clear to him that I could not afford to go on that trip.
So why did you go?
Well,
my question.
I could go if I paid the airline because he offered to take care of the hotel.
Why would you do that, Ms. Groth?
I'm sorry, do what? Go on the vacation?
Absolutely.
I don't know. It was a mistake.
It was a big mistake. Why in the world would you expect somebody who you were not involved with?
We were involved.
No, you were not involved with. You went out for dinner. According to what I'm hearing, you went out for dinner one time on your invitation. And maybe you were hoping for more of a romantic relationship. But as far as I'm hearing, this was not a committed relationship. So why in the world would you expect someone else to pay your freight? Why would you permit somebody else to pay your freight?
By that point, my daughter had found out about the trip. The daughters were talking about it, and I told him, I made it very clear that I could not afford the hotel.
Then you should not have gone.
Well, maybe not.
Then you should not have gone, and you certainly shouldn't have gone and invited somebody else to go with you. You see, that's how I know.
No.
That's how I know that what you're telling me is not true. Because if you were going with some sort of an expectation that this was going to be a romantic getaway for the two of you, you wouldn't have invited a girlfriend.
Can I finish telling you what the reason the girlfriend went is because he had called me and asked me if I had any single girlfriends I could bring.
That is not
for
true.
his friend.
That is not true.
He called me and he says, okay, I've taken care of the room. Can the girls, all the girls, stay in with you? And I said, well, that would be like 6 of us in one room. He goes, that way, my room is open for us.
That is completely
true.
wrong.
That is
Your
true.
Honor,
Just wait a second. Shh, just a second. So what did you say?
I said no.
Well, not only did you say no, but you should have said goodbye if that wasn't your intention, Miss Groth. What I'm saying is, if you have any misgivings about going away on a trip with somebody whose intentions you're not sure of, you don't go. And you certainly don't go and expect for somebody else to pay for you and pay the freight. You stay home, go to Seattle. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The car was a gift.
Ms. Chunt, this young man is your son.
Yes, ma'am.
And your complaint alleges that he owes you a balance of a car loan.
Correct.
And your son says the car was a gift to him.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Did I ask you a question?
No, I'm sorry.
And while he helped you financially for a while, had nothing to do with this being a loan, it was always a gift, and when he had his expenses got to a point where he could no longer help you out, he just stopped. Is that...
That's
now
correct.
I'm looking at you.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Do you want me to yell at him?
Please.
Who is this person?
This is my son's ex-girlfriend, Jessica.
And who is this?
This is my current girlfriend, Kelly.
Is she here for any particular reason?
More or less. She was witness to an instance over the summer where I actually offered a reconciliation to my mother at a festival downtown. And basically my mother told me she was in the process of filing bankruptcy and that my help was too late, and basically shrugged me off and walked away. So at that point I felt like I was no longer obligated to even try to reconcile or help out the situation at all.
Let me understand this. I'm going to put what you just said to me, because I know that one thing you're going to learn as you get older, you have to think about what you say before you say it.
Absolutely.
What you just said to me was, this young lady is a witness to something that happened recently. When you said to your mother, listen, let me try to work this out with you, you know, with the car, and she shrugged you off and said to you, I filed bankruptcy and your help is too late.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Well, that's, Mr. King sort of acknowledges that this was a loan.
Well,
don't well me.
I'm sorry.
That sort of acknowledges that you had some responsibility in your mother's financial situation. You gotta keep it simple. All right, when was the car purchased, Miss Shawn?
August of 2002.
How old are you?
21.
How old were you when the car was purchased?
I believe 19, Your Honor.
How much were the car payments each month, Mr. King?
$150 maybe, Your Honor. I'm not sure.
Well, you were making the car payments for a while.
Yes, correct. It was a long time ago.
Okay. You were making the car payments for a while. So when you say it was $150 a month, was it 150 or 152, 156?
Couldn't tell you, Your Honor. Don't have my checkbooks from back then anymore.
How many years did you make the payments?
I'd probably say 12 months.
When you stopped making the payments, did you notify your mother?
Absolutely.
Is that right?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I found out 3 months after the fact that he stopped making the payments that from the finance company contacted me and said the payments had ceased.
You have the letter?
The payment was $177.26.
You have the letter from the
No, they didn't. They just called me and I made a payment over the phone. He made $3,000 worth of the $6,000 loan.
Well, that's a pretty good track record, Mr. King, for somebody who got a gift. See what I mean?
Yes, Your Honor.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Dawn Chount says her son, Scott King, owes for the balance on a car. Dawn claims Scott traded the car in and kept the money.
Now, did you file a bankruptcy last summer?
Absolutely not. I've never filed bankruptcy. I have no intention of ever filing bankruptcy.
What kind of work do you do, Ms. Shaw?
I'm an administrative assistant for a management firm.
Who's driving the car?
He's traded that car in on a new vehicle. Yes, ma'am. I have. He got $4,000 on a trade-in, and instead of paying off the loan, he decided to use that $4,000 to purchase his brand new Focus that he's now driving. And they gave him $4,000 for the car, and he used it as a down payment.
Yeah? I mean, you're just going to stand there and look foolish?
No, Your Honor. I mean, what do you want me to say about that? Yes, I traded the vehicle in.
Well, if you traded the vehicle in, who did you expect to make the payments after you traded the vehicle in?
When I was living rent-free, I had no issues helping out with the bills. I was working full-time, going to school full-time.
Helping out with the bills is a different story, Mr. King. Helping out with the bills means, Mom, he has $200 or $300 for rent, or he has $100 a week for rent. That's a different helping out with the bills. You made the car payment directly.
It was sporadically. It was, a chunk here, a chunk there.
Well, that's because you were young and stupid. That's not because that's the way people do business.
I know that now, Your Honor.
How much is left owing on the car?
Approximately $3,000.
Let me see.
I'm sorry, $2,000 is my balance right now. Here's my current statement from the finance company showing the balance as of today.
And I'm amazed that you traded this car in, that they let you trade the car in with a lien.
Because it was a personal loan.
May I say something, Your Honor?
It was a personal loan? What do you mean it was a personal loan?
It was a signature loan. There was no collateral.
What do you want to say?
Well, this wasn't financing that I requested. It wasn't I was at the age where I could require credit myself. This is a loan that she got, and she acted sporadically like, let's do this now, let's get this now, you need this. I wasn't prepared to make this transaction, and it was basically thrown upon me out of need, out of necessity, from her standpoint, that we needed a better ride for me and Jessica to go to college and back and whatnot. And it happened within a day. We got the check in the mail, and the next day I had a car. It was like that quick. And I mean, I don't agree that I didn't ask for the loan, I didn't want the loan. I don't even consider it a loan. It wasn't something that I was part of at all. It was something that was thrown upon me, and now I felt like I was being held accountable, like it being dangled over my head from that point forward. After we got rid of my Escort, I had no vehicle. So we had the Cavalier, and I was like, make the payment or you lose it. And I was like, this isn't something I ever wanted to acquire. If I had it my way, I would have still had my old vehicle, and everything would have been okay from that point forward. I don't feel like this was any kind of my decision, and it was forced upon me.
Was he a difficult pregnancy?
Actually, ma'am.
No, I'm asking you, was he a difficult?
No, he was all of my children were very easy. And he was a very cooperative. I was working, got it from the dealer. He was going on a test drive. Mom, I really want this car. I tried talking him out of purchasing this car.
Listen to me.
That's not true.
No 19-year-old or 18-year-old says... 18. Yes. Says, Mom, I don't want this nice car. I want to drive the piece of junk that I'm driving. I'm really happy driving around with my girlfriend in this piece of junk that doesn't start all the time.
Absolutely.
Please, I don't even want to think about a nice car. Being 18, I want to take the bus, take the train. With my,
no, ma'am.
That's how we want to go out.
You wouldn't take a bus to school, to high school.
No. I just want to know whether you had any clue in utero that he was going to develop into this.
No, the last thing I want to do is be here against my son, let me tell you.
Excuse me?
The last place I want to be is here with my son.
I don't blame you.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't blame you.
I just can't afford to make payments on something that is non-existent.
Well, I think that he's got some nerve trading it in. That really suggests to me, I'm speaking.
I'm sorry.
That really suggests to me that he is really totally an amoral person. He could have traded it in for something and given you the money.
That would have been really nice.
That would have been, and not put you in a hole. Because according to Freshmouth over here, he at least thought that you were filing for bankruptcy. He at least thought that you were in financial difficulty. And one of the reasons that you were in financial difficulty was because of his actions. Because according to him, new girlfriend over here, whose purpose in being here is to tell me about this conversation that she heard about looking forward to helping his mother, right? Isn't that what he said you were going to tell me?
Right.
Right. Means that he understood that his conduct created a negative situation for you.
And I do admit that.
Oh, get over it.
Ma'am, can I give Scott the title to his Focus? Because it's at my house.
No, I don't want you to give him anything.
This is his title for his car that he's driving now.
Listen to me. I don't want you to give him anything.
Okay.
He's got to understand what aggravation is. And if he doesn't have a title to the car that he's driving now because it came to your house, let him go to motor vehicles, fill out all the paperwork that he has a lost title, that the title never arrived, that he moved. He'll fill out an affidavit that he never got the title because he no longer lives in your house. Let him do something. Do you understand?
I understand.
He has to experience some pain. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's all.
Of his PlayStation and computer.
All right, Mr. Seabold, you and the defendant had a relationship, according to what I read in your complaint. The defendant became pregnant. According to you, you leased an apartment in your name.
Yes, Your Honor.
You moved in together. She had her baby. You didn't get along.
Correct.
You subsequently ascertained that this baby was not yours. You took a paternity test.
Right, Your Honor.
And you separated.
We actually separated before the paternity test.
So you separated, and then you took the paternity test.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you told her when you moved out that you wanted her to move out too, because
Right, Your Honor.
you didn't want to be responsible for the rent anymore. She did not. She stayed in the apartment for several months. Is that right?
Yeah, about 2 months.
You want her to pay that 2 months' rent.
Yes, Your Honor.
And in addition, you claim that you left some property at the house. You want that property.
I would like that back, yes.
Ms. Deeden says she doesn't have your property. You knew that you didn't have to leave the house, that you could have stayed there with your family, that you knew that there was a possibility that this baby wasn't yours all along, so that she didn't fool you. Is that true, by the way?
That is, I knew there was a small chance that the baby was not mine.
How small a chance?
I assume there's a very small chance, but obviously not that small.
Just curious. Why did you assume that there was a chance that the child wasn't yours?
Because I found out that she had cheated on me with one of my best friends. After I found that out, and then we started talking a couple months later, and we tried to patch things back up, and then we found out she was pregnant.
How come you didn't have a paternity test immediately?
I was just trying to forget the incident of the cheating and the separation, trying to work back towards our relationship. And any reminder that was sort of painful for me, I was just trying to get back on with our lives.
How old are you, Mr. Seabold?
I am 22 years old.
How old are you, Miss Deeden?
18.
Shh. Please. How old is your baby?
My daughter is 14 months old.
Does the child's father pay child support?
No, he does not.
Why not?
At the time of conceiving my daughter, I was not dating Daniel. I was in a relationship with the father. Upon becoming pregnant, upon knowing I was pregnant, I should say, because I did not find out right away. I found out after I was 10 weeks along. Daniel and I had started dating at that time when I...
Could you answer my question? I mean, I'm not interested in from the year of the flood. I just want to know how
No, he
come
does
the
not.
father doesn't pay child support for the child.
He signed his rights over to Daniel Siebel.
You mean he terminated his parental rights?
Yes, he did.
With a lawyer?
I don't believe so. It was between him and I and 2 witnesses and then notarized and sitting in his courthouse, so...
It means nothing.
That's good to know, thank you. I was not of knowledge.
Well, I'm telling you, unless he's been advised of his right to counsel, child has to have an attorney as well before somebody can give up their rights. He's giving up his rights to somebody else who's not the father. Ridiculous. Correct. Your child has the right to be supported by 2 parents. And before somebody can give up their parental rights, there are certain rules and regulations that have to be followed. And you can't just wake up one morning, give yourself a good scratch on the rear end and say, I think I'm going to give up my rights and my responsibility as a father. How old is this other character?
22 as well.
Okay. Now, she stayed in the apartment for 2 months after you moved out.
Yes, Your Honor.
Where did you expect her to go?
I assumed she'd either go to her parents' house, where we actually moved from, because they were kind enough to let me stay there when we found out she was pregnant. I told her upon leaving that I wanted to move back into the apartment, so I was asking her to leave, but I didn't want to put Sierra, our daughter, out I wanted to keep a roof over her head, and I told her she could either stay there and pay rent, or I asked her kindly to move out.
How long was your lease?
The lease was a year lease.
And how many months did you actually live there?
I lived there from July to December, so that's 7 months.
Did you move back into the apartment?
No, I did not, Your Honor.
Well, are they suing you for the entire remainder of the lease?
I'm not quite sure exactly what they're suing me on.
Well, why don't you let me take a look, since I don't think you understand legal documents very well.
I do not have a copy of how much. I spoke with the representative, Stacy, and she told me...
I'm not interested in what Stacy told you, sir. That's hearsay.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Mr. Seabold, you're 22 years old. What do you do for a living, sir?
I work at Walgreens. I'm a photo specialist.
How high of an education did you have?
I graduated high school.
One of the things you have to have when you come to court is evidence.
Right, yeah.
If you're dealing with a managing company, the managing company will tell you and will be more than happy to memorialize in a writing how much money they are claiming you owe them.
Unfortunately, I couldn't get a hold of the person to send me the facts.
So what do you want me to do, Mr. Seabold? What do you want me to do?
I obviously don't expect you to go and do my research for me.
You're absolutely right. I feel sorry for you because they probably will come after you not only for the 2 months that she lived there, but probably for the remainder of the lease if they haven't rented the apartment. You can't come to court and expect me to get your proof for you. You understand?
Yeah, I understand, Your Honor.
Good. What property did you leave there, Mr. Seabold?
I left my laptop computer.
Where is his computer?
That's exactly why I brought my mother. The computer is not in my possession. Upon Daniel leaving, he took just a duffel bag with some clothes. He did come back to the apartment at one time where an altercation occurred between him and I.
About what?
He came to the apartment with his girlfriend.
No, that's not... Why did you do that?
She was my ride. I didn't want to go alone.
Nobody else could drive you there except a new girlfriend?
Unfortunately, yes. I had moved... Sorry.
Tacky. Right?
Yeah, not
That's
the
pretty
best choice. I discovered later on, yeah.
Tacky. Okay. Laptop computer, sir. When you leave, it seems to me that's one of the first things you take with you is a laptop computer. Why didn't you take it with you the first time?
I was being a nice guy, and Amanda had asked me to keep it there so she can go online and apply for some jobs.
I have my own laptop computer.
Which doesn't have the capability to go online through a landline. It's only capable of going through DSL, and we did not have that service.
So where's his computer? Don't look down at the floor. Just listen to me. So far, you're not losing, but don't lie.
Oh, I'm not going to lie. My parents are in possession of the PlayStation and the computer.
Oh, fine, so that they can return it to him.
The reason that they have it is there's a large amount of money that Daniel owes my parents.
Just a second. What does Daniel owe your parents money for?
My daughter's christening that he had said he was prepared to pay for the day of the christening. After the guests had left the christening party, my parents had to pay because he was not prepared to.
What else?
My parents paid rent in November, but it was actually December. It was November's rent they paid because we were behind.
What else?
I don't even know, honestly.
Listen to me very carefully. You can stand up next to your daughter. Mr. Seabold may be a 22-year-old idiot, but I'm not. You expect him to pay for a christening for a child that's not his?
He agreed to pay for the christening.
Look, listen to me. Shh. He planned... Listen to me. This is your daughter.
Right.
This is your grandchild.
Oh, yeah.
You pay for the christening. Sure. You cannot keep his computer. You cannot keep his PlayStation. You cannot keep any of his property. Do I make myself clear?
Sure.
Good. Your daughter lived in an apartment, and if you helped out with rent for a month, you helped your daughter, right?
Sure.
Perfect. So, PlayStation or computer. What else, Mr. Seabold?
There was
Don't leave yet. Are you living with your parents, by the way?
No, I am not.
Who are you living with?
My grandmother.
How come?
Due to a situation between my parents and I.
What kind of situation?
There are problems with my teenage brother and myself that I'm old enough to not need to live there, and my brother is a minor, so he needs to stay at his parents. So I have taken my daughter, and I am at my grandmother's.
That computer better be returned to him, as well as the PlayStation, in perfect condition.
They were not in perfect condition when taken.
Exactly the same way as they were when they were taken.
Absolutely.
Don't mess around with me.
No,
You'll be very unhappy if you mess around with me.
I believe you.
What else?
There was a RCA 19-inch television set.
Where's the TV?
The TV was taken out of the apartment by Daniel and was taken to wherever he was at that time.
That is true. I was debating on whether or not I should try to put this in the case. I stayed at some friend's house, and when I moved out, there were some skirmishes between us and them, and he told me that he gave it back to Amanda.
tell me what anybody told you.
I apologize, Your Honor.
You get back your computer and your PlayStation.
Yes, Your Honor.
What's a 22-year-old man need a PlayStation for? What do you do with it?
I use it for entertainment, for relaxation.
He doesn't work. He lived at our house for a year and never paid a penny. He doesn't have a car. He didn't have a job. When he had a job, he took her car.
So?
So we supported him. That's why he had a lot of time to play PlayStation.
How old are you?
40.
How old was he, 20?
Yeah.
He was 20. So he's staying home, sharing a room with your daughter, playing his PlayStation. You're supporting them. Is that right?
Yes.
That doesn't make you too smart.
No, believe me.
But that's what you chose to do.
Right.
He doesn't owe you money for that.
No, he doesn't.
Right.
Gratitude would be nice.
Did you get gratitude from your daughter?
More than him.
Not enough. Right, Miss Deaton?
Oh, not enough. Not right now, no.
Right. I assumed so. We won't go there because this is only a half-hour program. Now let's get to your counterclaim. Your counterclaim is for your security deposit back.
Correct.
You used your high school money, $1,000 for security deposit.
Correct.
How long did you live in the apartment?
Till January.
Were you working?
I was working from October to January, yes.
How much were you earning?
Not a lot. I was very part-time.
Okay,
Daniel
you were
was
very
working
part-time.
full.
So who was paying the rent?
Daniel and my parents.
Well, your parents paid 1 month. That's what you told me about 5 minutes ago.
Correct.
The rest of the 5 months, Daniel paid. Right?
Correct. Correct. However, the security deposit paid for July and August. So Daniel paid September, October, and $100 of December.
How could, just a second, how could your security deposit pay for the first 2 months?
Because of Daniel's credit, we had to pay a double security deposit.
Fine. And how many months did you live there? 2.
Correct.
Good.
Daniel Seabolt says ex-girlfriend Amanda Deaton lied to him, claiming he was the father of her baby. He is suing for unpaid rent and the return of his PlayStation and computer.
Okay, Miss Deaton, you lived there for a couple of months after he moved out. You had a choice. You could have moved back to your parents. You're a teenager with a baby. You chose to stay there. You ate up your security deposit. You don't get it back. You do get back your PlayStation, your computer. 5 days, 9 a.m. Be there or be square. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
And to ruin her life.
Miss Keenest, this is your daughter.
Yes, it is.
Does she have any siblings?
Yes, she does.
How many?
2, a brother and a sister. She's the oldest.
Is she a cute baby?
Gorgeous.
Is she a nice baby?
Yeah, very well-mannered.
Must have been, because you had 2 more.
Yeah.
Well, you're not getting along so much anymore, and it is your claim that your daughter owes you the balance of 2 loans. One loan that you made to her several years ago in order to permit her to open up a business. That loan was for $10,000, and she's paid back a substantial part of that loan.
That's correct.
Over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. You were opening a beauty salon, and you were able to do that through the loan from your mom.
Exactly.
The second loan was for $2,000, and that was more recently, and that was to permit her to get an attorney because she was going through a divorce.
Correct.
With regard to that $2,000, your daughter says there was never any discussion of a loan, that you were ecstatic that she was divorcing the husband, and you agreed to help her secure an attorney so that she could
That's not true, Your Honor.
So that she could successfully conclude the divorce process. So let's deal with the first loan. When was that, Ms. Jaworski?
It would have been in August because I bought the business. I took possession
August of what year?
03.
And it was for $10,000?
Yes.
Was there supposed to be interest paid on the loan?
No.
Well, tell me how you were going to make this loan with no interest.
I knew that she had money left over from my grandmother's estate.
Put your hand down. What do you mean left over?
Well, my grandmother didn't take care of things how you're supposed to, and so all of the money that was left out of her estate went to the state for her care. But there was somehow this money left over that the state didn't
How
know
much
about.
money?
I knew of $10,000.
Okay, go ahead.
And so I asked my mom if I could borrow that $10,000 from her because I knew it was in the bank sitting there, and so that there wouldn't be interest or anything on it because we already had the money.
Well, there would be interest on it. If she loaned you $10,000, then she's losing the interest on $10,000 for as long as it takes you to pay her back.
There was never any discussion of it.
But you do understand that.
I understand what you're saying, but in my mind, it wasn't that way.
I don't care what
It
was in
just
your
sitting
mind.
there.
What I'm telling you is, if your mother takes the money out of the bank, then she's losing interest on it, so there is a loss. I also don't understand why she should make this loan to you without interest when you have a brother and a sister. Why would she just let you have it all yourself?
Because it was just going to be a loan. It was going to be paid back.
In what period of time?
There was no set period of time, because when you open a business, you never know. Most businesses fail in the first 5 years. And
Well,
so,
what happens if your business failed? You mean you weren't going to pay her back the money?
Well, no, I never intended not to pay her back the money.
But you just said most businesses fail within the first few years. What happens if your business failed?
Well, if my business failed, I would still have to pay her, but that was just to help me out. It was my mom helping me out. It was family helping family out.
But she didn't take that money out of the bank.
At the last minute, she had decided that she was going to pull it off of a credit card because she was nervous about the state finding out that she still had that money.
You mean she didn't think that they would find out about it if she kept it in the bank? Go ahead. Keep going. Keep going. I'm listening to the story. So she wanted to take it off of her credit card rather than take it out of the bank because she was afraid that the state would find out.
Well, she was worried that they would find out and then she wouldn't have the money sitting there.
Keep going.
No, that's really what happened.
Keep going.
And so at the last minute, she decided to pull it with zero interest. And either way, it wouldn't matter. There was
Zero
no
interest for how long? Forever?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? You're in business. You don't have zero interest forever, maybe for a year or two, but not forever.
I never saw any of the credit card information. I have no idea, to tell you the truth.
Well, let's understand this. You knew at the time that you accepted this loan that it was coming off of a credit card. Is that right, Ms. Javorsky?
At the last minute, yes.
I don't care if it's the last minute or the last second. You always could say no.
I know, but I'd already given
Listen to me. You always could say no.
Mm-hmm. And then if I had?
Who cares what happens if you had? If you had, you go to work in somebody else's beauty parlor. Now, there was zero interest. And as a business person, you know that zero interest isn't forever. It's for a fixed period of time, which was for how long?
2 years.
That brings us up to 2005. As of August 2005, how much money did you give her?
I haven't split it out. These are just the statements that I have until then.
Well,
I didn't add that up.
I don't do that. Math wasn't my strong suit.
Me either.
You either? Then you
No.
shouldn't be in business. But if you didn't pay her back in the 2-year period of time when there was zero interest on the credit card, you owe her whatever the interest is. End of discussion. Now, how much is on the credit card?
On the credit
Not with the $2,000 for the lawyer. I'm not dealing with that yet.
Well, it was all on one credit card, and the balance due on it when she stopped making the payment was $4,995.
Show me.
Ma'am, before you roll, can I say something else?
Well, this is not the last one. That's after I've made a payment, but...
Can I see that bird, please?
I've made like the last 6 or 7 payments on it.
Now, you wanted to say something, Ms. Javorsky?
I do, because the interest situation. She had said when we put it on that credit card that if the interest came due, that she would either take the money out of the estate and put it back on there. So I would never, the agreement was never any interest. It really wasn't.
Listen to me. You knew at the time she was taking out an interest-free loan for 2 years in order to cover this loan that she was making for you. You had 2 years to pay her back. You didn't. Then interest develops, and whether she takes the money out of the bank and loses interest, you still have to pay. Now tell me about the $2,000 for the lawyer.
When we were going through the divorce, or when Chris
When was that?
That would have been in 2000, I believe, 5.
Now, by 2005, we were starting to get some interest on this loan.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, well, so then we're going through our divorce, and I didn't have the money to retain a lawyer. At first, we were just going to do it ourselves. And I was telling her that he was going to try to get custody of the children from me, and that I needed to retain a lawyer. And what I don't understand is she hated...
Just don't tell me anything other than what happened. Not what you don't understand, not what you do understand. I'm interested in what you understood. Tell me what happened. Now, you were crying to your mother that your ex-husband was going to try to get custody of the children, and you couldn't afford a lawyer. You didn't have any money.
Basically. And
Right.
she said not to worry
And?
about it, that she would take care of it. And she sent me 2 checks.
From where?
From her credit card.
And?
And she wasn't worried about me paying her back. I didn't know how I was going to end up financially after the divorce.
How did you end up financially after the divorce?
I ended up giving him basically everything. I got $20,000 equity out of the house, of which I gave her a check for $4,000.
You did give her a big check.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got $20,000 from the sale of the house, why didn't you pay her back everything that you owed her?
Because I was buying another house, and I was trying to have a little nest egg in case when you're employed by yourself, it's always good to have a little money back up.
Well, but if the only nest egg your mother had was the $10,000 she had of your grandmother's money, why should you have a nest egg and not her?
I don't know. I've really thought about it that way.
But isn't that a nice way to think about it, Ms. Jaworski? I mean, how old are you?
I'm 37.
And how old is your mother?
My mom must be 57 yesterday.
So if somebody has to sort of struggle to put together a nest egg, isn't it easier for you, who's starting a new business, to put together a nest egg than your mother, who's 57? Especially since you spent the money. So it's real nice of you to want to have a nest egg all by yourself. But if what you're suggesting is that your mother said, well, if you don't pay the note back in the 2 years, that it's interest-free, you'll take the money out of your nest egg.
No, that wasn't the way it is. I think.
Well, that's what you just told me.
But
I'm just following what you told me.
I think you're misinterpreting it.
No, that's what you told me.
No, it's not.
Does that sound what you just told me?
Sounds like what she told you.
That she would take the money out of her nest egg and pay off the credit card and wait for you to finish putting your nest egg together so you would pay her. Duh.
If you have a business and you don't have operating capital and you don't have money to buy and bring things in and out, you can't run a business. And so that's what I used the other part of that money for.
That's not what you just told me.
It is. I had it.
No,
in a
that's
little,
not what you just told me.
I had it set aside so if something happened with the business that I could keep it going.
That's your nest egg.
Well, I had to because if
you owe
I
your
lose,
mother $4,000.
If I lose the shop,
you owe your mother $4,000, and I gather that the reason she's here is because you stopped paying her, according to your mother, because you had an estranged relationship for a while. Why, I don't know.
Because she's seeing my ex-husband.
Well, that's what you say. That's what you say.
That's not true. I'm seeing my grandchildren.
That's what you say. I think that makes it very convenient for you, Ms. Jaworski, because she wasn't seeing her grandchildren, and she wrote a letter, according to her, to her grandson when he was at his father's house, and his father called her and said, if you want to see the boys, you can see them, and she's been seeing them at your ex-husband's house, which ticked you off. So you stopped paying the loan. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,000.
Thank you very much.
From their share or his drug habit.
Mr. Windhausen, you and the defendant lived together for a period of time, and it is your claim that at the time she broke up with you and told you to leave, she kept your property. She kept the truck that you had been making payments on and some other personal property that you had purchased for the house.
Correct.
Ms. Speakman said everything is hers.
Yes.
When did you move in together?
About 6 of 04.
June of 04.
Right.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
How old are you?
34.
You have children?
No.
What kind of work do you do, Mr. Windhausen?
I'm a welder.
How long have you been welding?
About a year and a half now.
Make good living?
Decent. It's fair.
Tell me what you make.
I'm about $14.50.
An hour?
An hour, yes.
How much did you make last year?
How much did I make last year? About $12,338.
You worked full-time?
Yes, I did work full-time. I got laid off in December of 05, and I was rehired back on, so I had
When?
it in February.
But other than that, you work continuously?
Correct.
And what did you do with your money?
What did I do with my money?
Why do you keep asking me a question? I know the question that I asked. What did you do with your money when you got your money when you were living with Miss Speakman?
I cashed my checks at the U.S. Bank, and I went and paid it to, just gave her cash.
Well, how much cash did you give her?
Approximately about $340 per week.
It was different every week.
Tell me about this truck.
This truck, I needed a vehicle to get back and forth to work. I did not have one. I wasn't able to put one in my name because my credit wasn't the greatest. And at the time, I was working on getting a work permit to make a commute back and forth to work.
What did your bad credit have to do with getting a work permit, Mr. Windhausen?
Because I wasn't able to put the truck in my name.
Did you have a driver's license?
I did not. I just had a work.
Well, that's an answer why you can't have a truck in your name, sir.
Correct.
So you were going to drive this truck despite the fact that you didn't have a license?
No, until I got my work permit.
Did you drive the truck without
a
license?
Yes.
So Ms. Speakman put the truck in her name and allowed you to drive it without a license?
Correct.
Jan, down, I get to you. Okay. And who made the payments on the truck?
I did.
How much were the payments every month?
Approximately about $340 a month.
$340 a month?
Plus
It's exactly the same amount that you gave her. You said a week. That's a number you must like. You told me you gave her $340 a week when you cashed your paycheck, and now you tell me that your truck payment was $340.
That was excluding making the payments on the refrigerator and the stove and the bedroom set.
Just a second. How much was the truck payment?
About $340.
And how much did you used to give her every week from your paycheck?
Around $340, yes.
Ron. He's got it down, and he's not going to waver. And how did you make the truck payment?
Cash.
Now, because we're just dealing with the truck so far, when did you kick him out?
July 7th of '06.
Why?
Because I found out he was doing drugs. He actually, July 1st is actually when we broke up. He couldn't get a ride until July 7th. He stole $400 out of my purse, said he was going to the store to get ice, and didn't come back for like 12 hours because he was doing drugs.
What kind of drugs does he do?
Cocaine.
Have you ever seen him do cocaine?
No, I haven't. He told me.
What did he say?
A couple months prior, he took a lot of money. We had a joint checking account for a little while because I went to get money out and all the money was gone. Well, then I questioned him about it, and he finally told me that he was doing cocaine, that he had a drug problem, and then he didn't want to tell me what the drug was, and then he finally told me it was cocaine.
How much money did he take out of the joint account?
About $1,500.
Do you remember when?
It was March and April. He did it on 2 different occasions where he took hundreds of dollars out a couple times. I mean, hundreds, like $600 a night.
It's not true.
No?
No.
Don't do drugs.
No, I don't.
You willing to take a drug test?
I am willing, yes.
Willing to take a hair follicle test?
That's fine.
Right after court?
That's fine.
You understand that if you go for one of these tests, they will, and if it's positive, they won't let you be a welder. You understand that?
Correct.
You prepared to sign a release that the drug test results can be sent to your employer? Is not an answer.
I have smoked weed, yes.
Weed
So-
we're not talking about, sir. We're talking cocaine.
All right.
Got me?
Yeah, I got you.
Perfect. If you have a problem and you're 24 years old, you better get rid of your problem. Do enough cocaine so you're going to have a brain like mush. You know, when you start up here, you can have a brain like mush. When you start over here, it's over very, very soon. Now, how could you take money out of a bank account?
It's my money, too.
Well, if you're putting in $300 a week to run a household, you have rent, you have food, you have gas, you have electric, you have all the other stuff, and was he giving you an extra $340 for the truck payment?
No, he wasn't. He gave me, his checks were different every week, so he gave, sometimes it was only $100, sometimes he didn't give me any money at all.
Yeah, because if he's making $15 an hour, earning $12,000 a year just doesn't,
well, that was
doesn't make it.
The truck payment was $320, and it did come directly out of my bank account ever since I bought
Well,
the
it
truck.
may have come directly out of your bank account. That doesn't mean, quite frankly, Ms. Speakman, that he wasn't giving you money. My question is, was he giving you money earmarked for this car payment, or was he giving you a certain amount of money every week?
It was different amounts every week because, like I said, sometimes his checks were always different. Sometimes he would give me nothing. Sometimes he would give me $100. There was a couple times he probably gave me $300.
And what about the monthly truck payment?
What?
Did he give you money for the
Directly
monthly
for
truck
that?
payment?
No.
In cash is my question.
No.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, how could she make the payment for a car payment, a truck payment, a house payment, and all the other utilities if I was not paying any money to that household?
She didn't say you weren't paying any money.
But how could she afford
I make
those
a lot
vehicles?
more money than he does.
What kind of work do you do, Ms. Speakman?
I work at a factory.
And how much do you earn an hour?
$22 an hour.
And how much did you earn last year?
$50,000.
And you were earning $15 an hour, which is, you know, only a third less, and you only made $12,338, sir. That figure that you told me specifically, $12,338, which is what you said you earned last year, only 2 months you were out of work. Ms. Speakman.
Yes.
What did you do with the truck?
I still have the truck. I'm still making payments on the truck.
What are you going to do with the truck?
I'm probably going to keep it.
Now, if Mr. Wendhausen is prepared to get a loan for $5,000 in his name, are you prepared to give him the truck?
No.
Sure. Sure you are. Listen to me, Mr. Wendhausen. You come back to me with a fully committed loan in your name for $5,000, and I will direct Ms. Speakman to turn over the truck to you. Do you understand?
I do.
But she certainly doesn't want to give you a truck that's in her name And she's certainly not going to give you the value of it or what you claim to put in, because you can't prove what you put in to the truck unless you have canceled checks.
No, I paid everything cash. Yes.
Right. So go get yourself a loan, and then Miss Speakman is going to turn over the truck to you. You think that's going to happen, Miss Speakman?
I don't think he'll be able to get a loan.
Correct. Correct. But if he can.
But what about I paid it, like for the whole year that he hasn't been there?
It was sort of a fluid situation. Right. But I certainly don't think that you ought to get stuck with this truck and turn it over to him. And I certainly don't believe that he, each and every month, paid you his portion of the expenses, as well as the $340 for the truck, because he didn't make that much money.
Right.
Now, what other property do you claim, sir, is yours that she kept?
I have a GE arranged stove that I purchased.
When did you purchase that, sir?
I purchased it in about 11:05.
And you moved out in?
7/06.
And did you eat while you were there?
I did, yes.
And did you use the stove?
I only had it for about a month or two before I moved out.
Show me proof that you purchased it.
He just said we got the stove in November and he moved out in July. So
I got it.
Okay. Thank you.
I see it's purchased by you, Mark Wendhausen.
Right.
Show me how you paid for it.
I paid cash.
I have a check.
Can I see it, please?
These are the 2 payments I made. These are the 4 payments that were made total.
Okay. She's got proof of the payments, sir.
Proof of the payments that I paid?
Well, show me your payments. It doesn't say that this was paid in cash.
I paid those payments, ma'am.
To whom?
To Turner Electric.
Show me.
Cash. Don't you see there's cash? She writes checks. I pay cash.
What else, Mr. Wendhausen?
I also have receipts here for refrigerator.
When you moved into the house, Mr. Wendhausen, was there a refrigerator in the house?
Yes. Can you please tell me where all my money was going?
All your $12,000?
Well, I lived there for two and a half years.
All your $12,000?
His money was going up his nose. Mine
Just a second. Mr. Wendhausen, I don't think that you understand, sir. That barely supports a person. You don't get it.
I'm not getting it. I'm making payments that, you know.
Show me that you're still making payments.
I'm done. Those are the receipts. That's paid off.
And you paid for it, and you used the refrigerator, and you used the stove while you were in her house?
Yeah, it's my
Goodbye,
name.
Mr. Wendhausen.
Do you think I could
I think you have a problem, and I think that you really have to take care of your problem. If you manage to secure a loan for the truck, I am going to direct Ms. Speakman to turn the truck over to you. We will recalendar this case as soon as the clerk receives indication that you've received a loan, and I will direct this truck that you want to be turned over to you. Do you understand?
Okay, I do, but...
Good. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Campos, the defendant is a security guard at a club, and it is your claim that he pepper sprayed you, causing you injury after an incident at the club where you were a patron along with your brother and some other people.
That's correct.
The defendant says that your brother and you were both drunk that evening, and it was necessary to use the pepper to preserve the peace. On what date did this incident occur, Ms. Campos?
On the night of Friday, May 15th, or the morning, Saturday morning, you could say. It was about 1 a.m.
Who had you been with that evening?
My brother and a couple of his coworkers.
You the brother?
Yes.
Step up, please. Tell me your name.
My name is Moises.
Okay. Why don't you tell me what happened?
We were on our way out of the club. My brother and his friends and myself, of course, were walking out. I stopped to get some food that they sell there at the nightclub. So I grabbed 4 burritos. And on my way out, my brother's now sort of a ways ahead of me, friends sort of behind. We're kind of shuffling our way out since it is a club, there's a lot of people. We're making our way out of the club into the parking lot, which is also an alley. And I'm outside in the parking lot, and I see a ruckus, something going on in the alley. And I notice that my brother is surrounded by a number of gentlemen. So the guys around my brother, the security are kind of, you know, around him. And then I see Val with his arms crossed, sort of closest to me. So I ask him, hey, what's going on? Why are you guys doing this?
Well, you didn't ask quietly, because you would not have asked quietly. You would have been excited.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's make sure we get it all right.
Yes. That's correct, Your Honor. And his arms are crossed. He's looking at me with this snarl. All I remember, the last thing I remember is this smile. It's kind of like a, oh, 'cause I'm bored. Pulls up. I don't even see, I don't know what it is. Yes.
Is that what he said, or is that the look?
Both. The look, and he said those 3 words, "'cause I'm bored." Next thing I know, I'm on my knees in a dress and heels. Face feels like it's on fire. I have no idea what just hit me until I realize, I mean, you know, moments later, I'm just like, oh my God, what has happened?
Okay, so that's when you were sprayed and you fell.
That's when I was sprayed and I fell.
Mr. Campos, tell me what happened when you left the club.
As I walked out, I was pushed out by one of the bouncers because he was clearing everybody out, got me out.
Had you been asked to leave the club
I had
before?
been asked to leave.
Why? Do you know?
Just because it was the end of the club. Everybody was about to leave. I was finishing one of my drinks, and he didn't allow me to finish it, so.
I want you to be very accurate with me, Mr. Campos. So you were asked to leave the club, and you didn't leave right away? Is that what happened?
Right.
Okay. And you must have said to somebody in authority, some security person, when I finish my drink, I'll leave?
Yes.
I'm speculating, but I want you to tell me what happened, sir.
So I'm trying to finish my drink. He said, you got to leave now. I said, okay, let me finish my drink. He said, no, you're leaving now. So he pushes the drink out of my hand. It breaks, pushes me out.
Okay. So that's not just pushing you out because the club is closing. You had a confrontation with a security person inside.
Right.
And they pushed the drink out of your hand. The drink fell, and then they pushed you outside.
Correct.
Where was your sister at that time?
She was getting us food. So she was in that same lobby area.
Okay. And so now the security guard pushed you out, so you're out ahead of your sister.
Correct.
How many guards pushed you out?
One.
Who? You don't know?
His name. No.
And it's not this gentleman?
No.
Were you there that night?
Yes, Judge.
And it wasn't this gentleman? No. Okay. Do you know who that was?
Yes.
Who?
A guard named Dave.
Where is he?
He's not here today.
So Dave pushed you outside. Did you see that?
Yes, I was outside when he was brought out.
Explain to me how he was brought out.
Dave was holding on to this gentleman, and 2 other guards were with him as they escorted him out to the outside and asked me to remove him from the area because he refused to leave and was demanding another drink.
Because they had spilled his drink.
He was demanding another drink, and they took that drink, apparently, I found out later, and removed him and brought him outside.
No, that's not what happened. No, that's not what happened.
Okay.
And since Dave isn't here, you can't even suggest to me that's what happened because you weren't there. What he says was, he said, when I finished my drink, and Dave said to him, you're finished with your drink. And he said, I'm going to finish my drink. And the drink got spilled, and that's what caused the trouble. So now you're outside. Was it just Mr. who was with you, or were there other security guards there as well?
There were others around outside, yes.
So it was just Mr. that was bringing you out?
Correct.
How was he bringing you outside?
He, grabbed me by the neck, pushing me with one hand, pushing me in the neck with another hand.
Okay. What happened when you got outside?
Got outside. I was very upset the way he treated me. We exchanged curse words toward each other. It was like a quick conversation because immediately he walked over to a group of security guards over next to where the parking lot is, right next to the club. And he said some words that I couldn't hear. It was kind of whispering or, face to face, and there were a lot of people around. And then that's when the next kind of phase happened.
Well, tell me about the next phase.
Once I was coming around toward the corner of J Street and 16th, I was walking.
So you were leaving the club?
Yes, now we're holding our food, walking away. My sister comes right behind me.
So at some point your sister caught up with you because she was
right
buying
behind
the food.
Correct.
And she got close enough to you to hand you a burrito.
Correct.
Is that correct?
No.
Not correct?
No.
Okay. And you saw the whole thing?
Yes, I was out in the parking lot.
You were out
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
parking lot?
Yes.
So I want you to tell me how he got the burrito.
As we were walking through the parking lot, he kept wanting to go back into the club and have a conversation with the other security officer. Kept calling him names and how he was going to physically hurt him. Dave.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. And we walked out in the parking lot telling him, no, it's time to go, time to go. And we were shaking our pepper because he kept advancing us that he was going to hurt us. And was like, no, sir, you need to go.
You're not answering my question. My question is, when did his sister, who had purchased the food, give him the burrito?
After I had sprayed her, apparently.
After what?
After I had sprayed her with pepper spray.
After you sprayed her, she handed him a burrito?
She'd had the burrito in her hand, so that's the only time I could see that she would have gave it to him was when
So the answer is you don't know?
I don't know, ma'am.
Then say I don't know.
I don't know.
Perfect. Do you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Your last name is?
Macom, M-A-C-O-M.
Go ahead.
What happened, Mr. Vallis and I work together, and you got to understand when we're out.
I don't have to understand anything. I asked you a simple question.
The burrito was given when he first came up. She said he didn't want to leave. I told him, get off the property now. She came up. Val had told her to get him off the property. She handed him the food and stuff. They started walking. As soon as we passed the police officers, then the verbal confrontation started.
Just a second. So they were walking away from the club?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened when they were walking away from the club? Now they're leaving. Situation has been diffused. Sticks and stones will break my bones. They're leaving. Keep going.
The verbal confrontation started.
What verbal confrontation?
The continuous, I'm going to kick your F you. So we just followed at a distance. We were shaking our cans, saying, please leave.
They were leaving. Listen to me. They were leaving. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what you follow before shaking your cans? Because they were calling your names?
No, ma'am. He was calling everybody names.
Because he was calling whoever was in earshot names. They were leaving, walking away with their food in their hands. Why were you following them?
To ensure that it did not escalate, ma'am.
It wasn't escalating if you weren't there. Do you understand that? It wasn't going to escalate if you weren't there. You following me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sit down. Now, Mr. Villa, so now he's outside and she's outside, and before you pepper spray her, she hands him the food and they're walking away. Unless you're calling him a liar, is that what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened?
We were in the parking lot, and he kept wanting to go back to the club.
No, that's not what he said. Then he's a liar. He's calling people names, and he's yelling, and he's angry, but he's walking away, according to your coworker. So are you calling him a liar?
No, ma'am.
Well, either he's a liar or you're a liar. Which one is it? Because he didn't say he was going back to the club. He said he was walking away.
He was back.
So he was walking away, cursing, but walking away with his sister. So which one is it? Was he walking away, or was he walking back to the club?
He was backing away, walking backwards away from the club across the parking lot, ma'am.
So he's backing away, and you're following him.
At a distance, ma'am, yes.
You're following him.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
So we're walking away, asking him to vacate as we're asking everybody else
That's
to leave
where
the
he's
club.
going. He's leaving. He's in the parking lot, walking towards a car.
And his sister walks up beside me, asked me what we're doing. I said, we need him to leave.
You mean she comes back?
She comes walking up beside me from behind me.
If they were leaving and walking together with her brother, and you're following them to the parking lot.
She had separated away from her brother.
Yes. At what point did she separate away from her brother?
As we were walking across the parking lot.
She veered off?
Yes.
And who was with her brother?
He was by himself.
Go ahead.
And as she walked back up beside me, she asked what we were doing, and I said, we were asking your brother to leave. Please get him to leave the parking lot.
He was leaving. You think I believe you? I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Okay.
You may have had what you considered an unruly patron, but you don't know what went on inside. He tells me what went on inside, which sounds pretty reasonable. He was told to put down his drink. It was time to leave the club. He said, when I'm finished with my drink, I'll leave. And David said, put down your drink, you're leaving. So that's what he says, which I must believe because I don't have David here. And when you got outside, he was very belligerent. You were belligerent. Oh, yeah, I believe that you were cursing and that you were not behaving like a reasonable person, right? What doesn't make sense to me is why you and your cohorts followed him out to the parking lot, unless he just ticked you off with his bad language. And bad language does not require pepper spray, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Now, you want to tell me what you allege she did to you to require you to use what I perceive to be force with regard to her? What did she do to you?
She stepped up in front of me. She pushed me back with her hands. She had food in her mouth and spit food out, and when she went to slap me, that's when I reacted and blocked her from slapping me, and I pepper sprayed.
I don't believe you. How long have you been in the security business?
Since 2006.
Well, if you've been in the security business for just a short time, I'm going to give you some advice. What did you do before you went into the security business?
I worked for the state of California.
As what?
As a correctional officer.
Well, then you had a short fuse. Did you retire from that job?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you're dealing with unruly prisoners, which is supposed to diffuse the situation as best you can, but he's not an unruly prisoner. He's a patron in a bar. And you're not supposed to walk around and show your muscle. What you're supposed to do is try to diffuse the situation as best you can. This situation could have been easily diffused by just watching them get into a car and leave, which is where they were going. They were going there, according to you and according to him and according to logic. He was going with a lot of foul language. But that doesn't hurt you, and it doesn't hurt anybody in the bar, right? It may hurt their feelings, but it doesn't hurt them, and doesn't require use of the kind of force that you used that day, which was to pepper spray her. I don't believe she went to hit you. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500 as requested. That's all. Ms. Lawler, according to your complaint, you and the defendant lived together, signed a one-year lease in an apartment. You moved in. There were three of you. You, the defendant, and you have a child who's 6. You lived together and everything was pretty okay for a while, and then there was an incident involving your son. And the incident involving your son surrounded an eating tantrum that he had. And according to Mr. Fletcher, he threw a tantrum and Mr. Fletcher spanked him. After that, the two of you separated, never got back together again. Mr. Fletcher did pay the rent for a couple of months and then stopped. You want him to pay the last 3 or 4 months' rent because he signed the lease with you. Mr. Fletcher says that he really anticipated that you would be back together again, that you told him to leave, and that he's not going to pay any rent since you asked him to leave. And not only asked him to leave, you told him to leave. I believe in your answer, Mr. Fletcher, you say that her parents gave her an ultimatum. Either you left or they were taking her son.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that what happened?
No.
Well, we'll find out. If they did say that, it probably would have been the right thing to do. Mr. Fletcher.
Yes, ma'am.
There are certain given facts in this case. You signed a joint lease, which obligated you to pay half the rent. You did not pay half the rent for how many months? 3?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Is that right? Yes. 3 months. But for the other 7 months you did. And what was your share of the rent?
$745 a month.
And yours was $745?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are you living now?
I'm still living there. The lease is not up yet, and I'm moving back in with my parents.
Who's paying the rent now?
I am.
From what?
I had to borrow money. I had to take out a personal loan with the bank in order to cover the rent.
Do you work?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher, tell me when you spanked her son.
It was evening of the 8th, Monday. Had cooked some dinner for him. Huh?
8th of what?
January. He was eating dinner, and all of a sudden he just started having a little tantrum, and I told him to stop, spitting food all over the carpet, told him to go to his room, wouldn't comply, so I spanked him.
Why don't you just pick him up and put him in his room?
Didn't think about it.
How old is he?
He was 5 at the time.
Where did you spank him?
On his bottom.
What'd you use?
Back of my hand.
How many times did you hit him?
I hit him once.
Once?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
I wasn't there. I'd have to take his word or my son's word. So.
Well, you don't have to take his word. What did your son say?
My son said that he had hit him very hard, so he was upset.
Is there any mark on him?
There was a little mark, yes.
You told your parents?
Yes.
And what happened?
When I saw it, I asked him, I said, you know what, you can't stay right now. This is not going to be a good situation. I don't know what's going to happen. I asked him to leave temporarily while he maybe did some parenting classes, maybe anger management or something to help cool things down and maybe fix the situation so that we could stay together.
So what do you want him to do?
I want him to fulfill his obligation and continue to pay the rest of the rent.
But he can't live there, Miss Lawler.
He can't live there because of his own behavior, because of his own actions.
I mean, I don't think if he hit, I'm not advocating Mr. Fletcher using corporal punishment on your child. Let's start with that. However, since you left him with your son in a position of parenting authority, there's a difference between corporal punishment and excessive corporal punishment. If Mr. Fletcher says he hit him once on the behind, and you have no reason to dispute that, and if you told him to leave as a result of that, and he did not have the ability to stay in the apartment because of that, he shouldn't have to pay the rent.
He signed a lease, and because of his actions...
You move.
How am I going to move with my son when everything in that apartment was mine?
Listen to me, Miss Lawler. That's a choice that you have. Instead of telling him to leave, say, listen, we have the following choices. We're both on this lease. I can't afford the rent because I'm not working. I'm going to move back with my parents. You can stay in the apartment. Or, if I stay in the apartment, we have to do something with the lease. But you told him to leave.
It's temporary.
No.
Yes, it doesn't...
No, you gave him... No.
No.
My dear, temporary.
He left some of his stuff in the apartment, so he knew it was not permanent. I told him, you get some parenting classes, you do some counseling,
that has nothing to do with the lease.
Yes, it does. It has everything to do with
Miss Lawler, it has nothing to do with the lease, madam. He didn't sign a lease and sign on to take on parenting classes or anger management classes. That wasn't a condition of his
sign a
lease.
lease that he would fulfill his obligation to pay his rent for the entire year. It doesn't matter what happened. He has an obligation to finish paying the rent.
That's why you're here. He did, in fact, pay 2 months' rent when he wasn't living there.
Yes, because he said he would continue to pay the rent because it was his obligation.
And I'm telling you that you told him to leave.
I asked him to leave temporarily until the situation calmed down. Am I supposed to put my son and me in some
When
situation
is your lease? When is your lease? Listen to me. When is your lease up?
My lease is up in the end of this month.
Well, you should have come to court earlier. I would have told you to go back to your parents earlier and told him to move back into the apartment.
What I have done? He can't pay the rent. We would have both still been on the lease, and we both still would be...
Miss Lawler, that's a what if. And what I'm telling you is the lease is up in 20 days. Instead of waiting 20 days, you should have sued him before. You should have gone in the first month that he said, I'm not paying you any more rent.
I couldn't, because I have to go back every month.
And then I would have said to you, Miss Lawler, go home to your parents now. Mr. Fletcher, you go back to the apartment and continue to pay the rent.
He couldn't have paid the rent by himself. Either way, if he had stayed or I had stayed, it doesn't matter. We would still be in the same situation.
Miss Lawler, right now, he paid rent for 2 months in an apartment where he was not living. When he was not living. You threw him. Don't you get it?
I did not throw him out. I asked him to temporarily leave. That's not...
When did you invite him back?
I wouldn't invite him back.
Just answer my question.
If you would let
When
me.
did you invite him? You said, I asked him to leave temporarily. When did you invite him back? On what date?
I told him he could come back when he took some counseling.
He doesn't have to do that,
Well,
madam.
then he doesn't have to continue the relationship with me. That was the circumstances. He knew that when he moved out, that he needed to get some help to continue the relationship so that he could move back in. It was not just the spanking of my son that started this. He has been unstable and yelling, screaming, accusing me of cheating. Every other week,
That's a whole other... Then you should have gone home to your parents earlier, Miss Lawler. Your case is dismissed. That's all. Mr. Sarden, you allowed the defendant to borrow your car. She took your car. She totaled your car. You want it fixed or replaced.
Yes.
Ms. Foote says that you loaned her your car. She did total your car. It was your car's fault, and she's counterclaiming for the pain and suffering she endured when your car was in an accident. What kind of car was this?
The Lexus ES300.
What year?
1993.
How long have you had it?
About 7 to 8 years.
Have you had any trouble with the car?
No.
Has the car ever been in an accident?
No.
You have it serviced regularly?
Yes.
And it has never been in a reported accident other than this one?
No.
Tell me about the circumstances surrounding your loaning Miss Foote the car.
She was supposed to go to the store.
Where were you first?
We was at a mutual friend's house. We was there for a birthday party for a little kid. I had showed up later on, and then...
What date was it?
March 17, 2007.
And I assume you knew her before?
Yes.
How long have you known each other?
For about 1.5 years, closer to 2.
Just friends?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so go.
So I had let her borrow my car. She was supposed to go to the store. Now, in order...
Did she ask you to borrow the car?
Actually, we had needed to go on a store run, and I did not feel like going out. I had just came back from driving all day, so I did not feel like going out, so I had let Megan borrow the car.
Well, tell me how it came about.
We was talking, we was in the room, and then everybody was like, we need to go to the store. So I'm like,
What did you have to get?
We had to get cigarettes and beer.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I had let her borrow the car.
I still haven't heard how that came about. Somebody said we need cigarettes and beer.
Okay, we was talking, everybody was talking. I'm sitting there saying, I'm not going to the store. So then she has said, I'll go to the store, you know I'm good. And I said, Meg, I said, are you sure you straight? She was like, Cal, I'm good. So I let her borrow the car.
Oh, okay. So everybody had been drinking?
No, not everybody, no.
But you asked her whether she was okay?
Yes.
Anybody been doing drugs that evening?
No.
Smoking a little?
No.
Just beer?
Yes, beer and cigarettes.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so then she had asked me to borrow the car to go to the store.
She said, I'll go.
Yes.
And I'm good.
Yes.
Which means that she was
Yes.
together enough to go.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So then she went to the store, and now from the house that we was at to go to the store, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to go to the store and back. So I had noticed my car hadn't been back in about a half an hour, so then I started to worry. And then so I had started to eat me some soup, and then after I finished the soup, I had noticed that my car still wasn't back. And then so one of my friends, female friends, had came over, and she was like, are you still waiting for your car? And I said, yes. And she was like, well, I think your car might have been involved in an accident up the block. And I was like, oh, no. So then I hopped in my friend.
Okay, and you found the car. Whatever. All right, you didn't witness the car accident, but you were there.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you on your way to the store or from the store?
I was on my way from the store.
On your way back to the party?
Yes.
And what did you have in the car?
I had actually gone to pick up my roommate, and he was supposed to pick her up from work that evening. He had gotten intoxicated and forgot.
Who?
She had Calvin.
Was supposed to pick up your friend?
Yes.
Your Honor.
Fine. What about this beer and cigarette run?
We had gone to pick up cigarettes at the store.
Who did?
Me and my roommate.
So first you picked up your roommate.
Correct.
And then you went to pick up beer and cigarettes.
Cigarettes. There was
Just
no
cigarettes?
beer to be picked up. No.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
And then you were on your way home.
We were on our way back to the party.
How far from the party were you? About a block?
Probably a minute to 2 minutes away. A few blocks.
So tell me what happened.
I was driving. The steering had malfunctioned. Let me get over here. The steering had malfunctioned probably about around here, where the car had gone into the mailbox. One of my passengers that was sitting in the front passenger seat had stated that I was going to hit a mailbox.
Don't tell me what anybody stated to you.
This way. It had swerved back to the other side of the road. Then it went over to the other side again and had gone up on the grass, hit the telephone pole, and that's about all I remember because I was knocked unconscious.
Do you have a driver's license?
Yes, I do.
You have a car?
Not at the time, no, I did not have a vehicle.
Did you ever have a vehicle?
Yes.
What happened to the car?
I had sold it because of personal issues.
Sold it why?
I had been going, I'm a single mother, and I was more concerned about caring for my child at the time. The car was not in my expenses. It wasn't in my means at the time, so I sold the vehicle so I was able to accommodate my son as properly needed.
You work?
Yes, I do.
How do you get to work?
I have a vehicle now. I went and purchased a vehicle about a couple months ago.
This happened in March.
Correct.
A couple of months ago is April, May.
Right. I purchased a vehicle in May.
When had you sold your other vehicle?
That was, what, November of 2006?
From November until 2006 until May, what did you do?
I had family members helping me out. My brother lent me his car every now and then.
Well, how did you get to work every day?
I would have my family members drop me off to work.
Who do you live with?
I live with my roommate.
She talks very, very fast on her feet.
Yana,
but I don't believe everything that you're saying to me. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
You understand that? You know, because if something doesn't make sense, there's always that slight hesitation.
Right.
So you can always tell when somebody is giving you a line.
Right.
Making things up as they're going. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Yes, I do.
Perfect. Okay, where's the car now?
The car is totaled.
Totaled?
Yes, and I have pictures also right here showing that it's totaled. And also I have an invoice from the place where it was totaled at, stating that it was a total loss.
Well, it certainly is a total loss. Did you replace it?
No.
You know what the blue book is on it?
Yes. I have it right here.
I'd like to see it.
There we go. Right there. And also, Your Honor, just to make you aware, in that area, it's a 30-mile-per-hour zone, and I have pictures of that showing that it's a 30-mile-per-hour zone.
I'd like to see that.
Yes.
Because this wasn't a 30-mile-per-hour accident.
No way.
Now, how fast were you going?
To be honest with you, I don't really recall, but I was never given a speeding ticket.
Were you taken to the hospital?
I refused the ambulance ride because I didn't know what kind of situation he had as far as insurance. I didn't want to put him into financial debt.
What, are you kidding me? You didn't go to the hospital because you probably had a high blood alcohol level.
I was never given a sobriety test.
I didn't ask you that.
Also, Your Honor, I have in my police report where it says that she had slid 144 feet.
I see.
Also, if you was doing about 50 miles per hour, you would have been able to stop at around 175
Well, you don't have any expert testimony. She doesn't have any expert witness, do you? Are you a mechanic? Friend, you're not a mechanic, are you? Do you have any proof that there was something wrong with his car?
No, I do not. Your Honor?
What?
I do have an eyewitness that was in the vehicle with me that saw the steering malfunction and lock up on me.
Before or after you slammed on the brakes?
Before.
Oh, really? Love to hear that witness. Love to hear that witness.
Do I stand up?
Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? The question is...
I was there.
Are you sure you want to do this, is my question. Fine.
Yes.
Over here. Your last name?
Rosado.
Miss Rosado, what arrangements had you made to go to the party?
Went to work and I was like, you know what, there's a birthday party, I can go to the party after work.
I said, what arrangements had you made to go to the party?
She was gonna come pick me up.
Now, what would possibly give her the impression that he was supposed to pick you up?
He had told me that day. He had dropped me off that morning to work.
Was there anything wrong with the car?
Not that morning.
How many times has he taken you to work?
A couple of times.
How many is a couple? A couple is 2.
Maybe 4 or 5 times.
How many other times have you been in his car?
A lot of times.
Ever had any steering problems?
One time we were in the vehicle and he was like, "Did you guys feel that?" It was his car basically what he was trying to say was his car was messed up when we was in the car.
Don't tell me basically what he was trying to say, madam. Tell me about what happened.
We was in the car one day and we was driving on the highway. I believe they was on the highway. And we was on the highway and he was like, "Wow, did you guys feel that?" He's like, "I have to get my car fixed."
When was that?
The day before we had the accident.
But it had nothing to do with the steering.
Maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't know nothing about cars, Yana.
Listen to me. The day before the accident, so he said to you, "Wow, something's wrong with the car." But yet you got in the car that morning for him to take you to work.
That's true.
Why would you put your life in your hands like that?
Don't know.
Only a stupid person would do that. You're not a stupid person, are you?
No.
Now, you want to tell me what you observed on the 17th of March?
We was in the vehicle. We was driving on Pritchard, which is the road.
How fast were you going?
I don't know, Your Honor.
Well, let me ask you this. Were you going 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour?
I wasn't the passenger. I was in the back seat. I wasn't looking at the speedometer.
You don't have to look at the speedometer to know whether you were going 30 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour.
I wasn't paying attention, Your Honor.
Perfect. Then you can sit down. You weren't paying attention. I'm not interested in what you have to say. Anything else you wanted to say to me?
Yes. He signed up for an insurance policy where he knew he was only covered for him to drive his vehicle if anything were to happen in a situation like this. My question is, why would you let someone use your car when you know you're not insured if anything were to happen in your vehicle?
The question is whether you were driving negligently.
No, Your Honor, I wasn't.
That was sort of a rhetorical question. There's no question in my mind that you were speeding. Based upon the damage to this vehicle, there's no question in my mind that you were going over and above the speed limit. There's also no question in my mind that you had something to drink that night. It's irrelevant, therefore, whether or not he had insurance that covered you. And if you got hurt, you shouldn't have driven too fast, and you shouldn't have had anything to drink while you were driving. That's the price that you pay when you act stupid. Meanwhile, you have to replace his car. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000, that's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
According to what I read, you were traveling in 2 cars, leaving Texas on your way to Arkansas because of Hurricane Rita.
Yes, ma'am.
You were traveling behind Miss Thomas.
Yes, ma'am.
In the car that you were traveling in was Mr. McMillan, one of Miss Thomas's children.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Thomas was traveling in front of you, and in your car was another one of your children?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Grisley, you were pulled over by the police.
Yes, ma'am.
For tailgating.
Yes, ma'am.
What did the policeman say to you?
Well, he pulled me over for tailgating. That's what he told me he pulled me over for.
In what state were you when you
In
got
Oklahoma.
pulled? Oklahoma.
We were on our way back.
Go ahead.
So he pulled us over. He asked me for my license, registration, and all that for the car. And I told him I didn't have my license, and I just got the car, so I didn't have no insurance, no registration, no nothing on it, because I just got it.
Well, what about your license?
It was expired, and I still had to leave to go to Arkansas, and I just drove back, you know.
Could we move on, please? What else did the police officer say to you?
So he ran my record and everything else. Then he asked me if I had anything, and I told him yes. And so he went back to
Well, you said yes, and he said, what?
No, we just went back to my car. I gave him what I had.
Well, what did you have?
I just had maybe a joint and a half.
Of marijuana?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you have it?
In my center console.
Where'd you get it from?
I brought it from home.
Had you used it while you were in Arkansas?
Yes, ma'am.
And you only had a little bit left?
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, so now, against that backdrop, Officer Byrd, the police officer gave him a ticket and also gave Mr. McMillan a ticket because under the laws in the state of Oklahoma, if there's marijuana or drugs in the car, everybody's responsible. So everybody gets a ticket. So Mr. McMillan got a ticket, and Miss Thomas over here had to pay the ticket, or else she was leaving Mr. McMillan in Oklahoma. And she wanted him home because it looks to me as if you're expecting.
Yes, ma'am.
How wonderful.
Tricia Thomas and fiancé Wesley McMillan say former friend Billy Chrisley caused them to be cited for possession of marijuana.
So, since you had to come up with this money because of his personal use of marijuana, you really feel as if he should take care of the ticket.
Correct.
I don't think I should because I already admitted up to my own stuff.
Well, why is it his fault?
Well, I don't see why the cop gave him a ticket for my stuff. I already gave it to him.
Because that's the law. I haven't seen that law, but I must assume in Oklahoma, if you are an adult and you are apprehended or stopped in a car and there is contraband, you know what that is? You know, bad stuff. Contraband?
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody in the car is responsible.
Okay.
That's the law. So your suggestion that he sue the cop really doesn't make sense. Now, if you said to me, look, he shared the marijuana with me, he smoked the marijuana in Arkansas, he knew it was there because we both used it together.
Well, we did.
Did you?
Yes, ma'am.
Ooh, where did you do that?
While we were up there.
In Arkansas?
Yes, ma'am.
Really? You sure?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Mr. McMillan.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I've been clean from every drug and alcohol for over 6 months and still going.
Well, sometimes there's a little bit of stress, Mr. McMillan, when you're escaping a hurricane.
Nope.
Because of the stress, he started smoking cigarettes again.
That was it.
Where were you in Arkansas, sir, when he was smoking this marijuana with you?
We were at the person's house that we were staying at. We just walked around the woods.
No, ma'am. The only time that me and Mr. Crispy ever took a walk, we went to the woods. There was nothing ever done. We ran down the side of a mountain and came back up, and that was it.
Now, when was your license suspended?
It was suspended in about, I think, 2002.
For what?
My dad gave me the keys to his truck so to give back to my mom. And when the cop pulled me over, they searched me, and all I had in there was, I had a 12-pack, but there was only 6 of them left. But when they searched the truck, they found a little baby roach that was in a film case that was in the truck, which I didn't know was there.
More drugs and alcohol.
Well, the alcohol was mine.
Was inside your belly, inside your little tummy? 6-pack?
Yes.
So you lost your license because of drugs and alcohol?
No, it was just the drugs. They didn't charge me with the alcohol.
Just the drugs. How'd you come up with the $940 to pay your ticket?
My ticket was $1,261.
Well, how'd you come up with $1,261
I had to borrow it from my mom, and I'm still paying her back. They had to use their house note to pay for that fine. And by the time it added all up, it was $1,343.
You want to know something?
Yes, ma'am.
I believe him. I believe that Mr. McMillan knew that he had marijuana.
I didn't know he had it in the car.
I know you didn't, but Mr. McMillan did, and I believe he used it with him. Now, that certainly would indicate to me that he bore some responsibility for this marijuana being in the car. So I suggest you get your money from him. And while the defendant acknowledges that this was his marijuana, everything else he's told me, I believe. He's not making up this stuff because he's certainly not making himself look too good, right? You understand that I don't think you look like a model citizen.
Which I know I'm not.
We know you're not.
Yes, ma'am.
But I believe you when you say that he was smoking marijuana with you in Arkansas. You are telling me the truth, aren't you, sir? I believe you. So that being the case, Mr. McMillan, you pay your own ticket, and I suggest you reimburse your fiancé for the ticket. You knew the stuff was there. You enjoyed it while you were in Arkansas. You got to pay the piper. Case dismissed. That's all.
For charges filed by Geraldine.
Miss Brady, this young lady is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is your husband.
Yes, sir.
According to your complaint, some time ago, your daughter and her husband had a small baby. That baby was removed from their custody by the state because of abuse, and the baby was placed in your custody.
Yes, ma'am.
You had her for approximately a year?
20 months, Your Honor.
And after 20 months, there was a reunification process, and she was ultimately returned to her parents.
Yes, Your Honor.
You now have that child and another child.
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint is that there came a point where your daughter and son-in-law made some false allegations about you, which required you, because you have a teaching position, to retain an attorney in order to dispute those allegations. And you want them to pay for that attorney and for the emotional distress that you went through from something. Your daughter and her husband say that there came a point when they were concerned over something that their daughter had told them when you were visiting with her, and they had every right to report that. And they are counterclaiming because they say that you have embarked upon a course of trying to interfere with the reunification process by making allegations against the Child Protective Services. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When was the child originally removed from your custody?
January 13th of 2005.
How old was she?
She was approximately 3 months old.
And what was the nature of the abuse that she suffered at 3 months old?
Some people that we thought were friends, and their youngest daughter was going through and put bite marks on our child.
Over what period of time?
A week or two.
You pled guilty to abuse or neglect?
Neglect.
And you understand that you neglected her?
Yes.
As did you?
I wasn't there. I was at work. I was working out of town for the period that this had happened.
The entire time?
It had happened within a week. I was out of town for the whole week.
Now, when the child was with you, did the parents visit?
Yes, ma'am.
At your house?
Initially, they had supervised visitation at my house, and due to the deteriorating situation, I asked for their visitation to be moved to a visitor center.
Well, that's part of their counterclaim, that if you hadn't forced the visitation to be at a visitation center, they might have been reunified with their child earlier. So I would like you to tell me, Miss Brady, what caused you to report this deteriorating situation?
They were coming over to my house, and I was allowing them wide open visitation. They could come, sit comfortably. I fed them. I permitted them to have any length of visitation they wanted. That was approximately June of 2005. Cliff went into court and claimed that he was paying child support to me, and I had not received any child support from them whatsoever. Also, when they came, they were bringing some people over with them. I didn't mind his family members, immediate family members, like his sisters and Kaylee's little cousins, but they started bringing strangers over.
Who would you bring over to the house?
My cousin.
Why would you do that?
We checked with her first. We told her that we were going to bring over my niece and my cousin, and she
Why
said
would
she
you
didn't
bring
have a problem.
anybody?
Because she would not come over down to Orlando so that my family could see my daughter, and my family wanted to see my daughter because they hadn't seen her since she was born.
Just a minute. What does that have to do with little cousins?
It's not. She was like 13 years old.
So what? This is for you and your wife. Visitation is for you and your wife. How many cousins did you bring to the visitor center?
We didn't take anybody to the visitation center because it was done during the week whenever everybody was working.
Right. So Miss Brady was taking care of business that you should have been taking care of, and if she said to you, don't bring people.
She never told me not to bring people.
Did you tell him not to bring people?
No.
Well, how was she supposed to be a mind reader?
Well, I did object to one person's presence. He was supposedly a friend of Brandy's, his older sister, and I did object to it to Cassie.
And what did she say?
She just shrugged her shoulders and made an excuse.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you got tired of all these people in your house?
Yes.
So you asked that the visitation be at someplace else?
Yes.
Were you going to visitation every weekend with your daughter?
At the center, it wasn't on the weekend. It was only during
At your mother's house?
We were going there about 3-4 days a week.
So that was great.
Mm-hmm.
That was great.
Yes.
Should have kept it simple.
We didn't know that there was a problem until she sprung it on us at the last minute, saying that there's visitation at the center now instead of at her house.
Okay. Should have been smart enough to figure it out.
If she would have came up to us and said, hey, I have a problem with some of the stuff that's going on, we would have done what we could to correct it.
Mr. Yeldington, you may be right. She probably should have said something to you before she moved it, but that's not a legitimate lawsuit. You should have been smart enough to keep it simple. Go with your wife, sit with your wife, with your 3-month-old daughter, bond with her, spend as much time with her as you can, and not involve the rest of your family. That's just not smart to do. Could she have told you? Absolutely. Is that a lawsuit? Absolutely not. Now, the child was ultimately reunified when?
September the 15th, 2006.
Tell me what happened after September the 15th.
Well, there was one visit that I went to pick her up at. Josh, my grandson, went to pick her up. I had visitation with her every other weekend. And I noticed there was like a mark on the side of her face. Well, when I got her home, it looked like a full-blown handprint on the left side of her face.
Josh, just stand up, please. Josh, you went to pick the baby up.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see any mark on her face?
Yes, ma'am.
Describe it to me.
It was marks on her face, and there was like some bruising right here.
Did you ask her what happened?
No, ma'am.
Did you?
She wasn't that verbal at that time.
Okay, fine. Do you remember what month this
September 2006, towards the end.
So you reported it?
Yes, I did, to the caseworker, and I took pictures.
You have pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see them, please.
There's the originals.
Very hard to see any mark.
Right.
Oh, I see the bruise in the middle of her lip. That I do see.
Yeah. That was on a separate occasion.
And then in October of 2006, I see a large black and blue mark on her forehead.
That's it.
Okay. You did the very wise thing and the right thing to notify the caseworker. You understand that, don't you?
Yes, I'm trying to recall on what these marks were.
Yeah, because we were never notified by the department that there was any marks on her.
Or by my mother.
But you do understand that being a responsible person, knowing the history of this child.
Yes, ma'am. But what I'm saying is, if there was a allegation made to the department, I think the department would have, at least done an investigation on it. There was no investigation done.
Should have done an investigation on it.
Yes, ma'am.
Whether they did or not is another story. No question about that. Okay, what happened next, Miss Brady?
In January of 2007, I had picked up Kaylee from their home, and when I was giving her a shower, I noticed what appeared to be like burn marks, like in a circle on her butt. And I did call DCF. The DCF investigator did tell me, take her to the hospital, have her examined by the hospital.
And did you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a report from the hospital?
No.
Because you're not the parent.
Right, and I didn't have custody of her at that time.
You have a report from the hospital on this incident?
We do not have it. We gave the copy to our caseworker because we were notified of the allegation. And the moment I was notified, I took my daughter down to the hospital, had her examined, and then also told them to call up the sheriff's department and told them I want to do everything by the book because this allegation is ridiculous.
Did you get a report when Miss Brady took her to the hospital?
Not from the hospital, but I do have the report with the department.
I'd like to read it. Are you trying to toilet train your child?
Yes, Your Honor.
Does your daughter have a psychiatric history?
No. After this point, I think she should.
Well, it is clear to me that based upon this, somebody observed marks and thighs that were clearly visible 2 days after your mother-in-law took the child to the hospital.
That right there would be the allegation that Miss Brady put against us for my daughter.
No, my dear.
Because our caseworker...
Kaylee has excoriated red marks on her buttocks and thigh. That's an observation, sir. That is not Miss Brady's observation. That's an observation either by a physician at the emergency room or the caseworker. It says, describes them. They're on her thighs. They're about 2 inches long. The marks on her lower buttocks looks like they may have been from sitting on the toilet for a long period of time.
Which she was not. And the doctors that we took her to and the investigators and everybody told us that they
Don't tell me what anybody told you. Show me a report. This is the only report that I have.
As far as her sitting on the potty for too long, she liked to play on the potty and try to be a big girl, and she would sit there herself. We didn't force her to stay there. And the marks on her thigh were chafing from her diaper because we went for a walk that morning before my mother picked her up.
You also had an excuse for the bite mark she suffered on her body. You claimed that that was not your fault. It is your fault. Whether you did the biting or you permitted this child to be, for over a week's period of time, bitten by another child, that's your fault. And just because a 2-year-old wants to sit on the toilet for a long time doesn't mean that a parent who is exercising parental responsibility allows a child to do that to such an extent that the child has welts on her bottom. Child should not have marks on their thighs from chafing from a diaper if all you have to do is take care of her, which is what the two of you have to do. Take care of her. So far, Miss Brady, you did everything right.
Thank you.
Now, would you please tell me why you were forced to hire a lawyer?
Well, throughout this 20 months, they've made numerous allegations.
Uncross your arms.
Against me, but then they made a very serious allegation against me July 26, 2006. And I think it was in retaliation because things didn't go very well for them in court.
What do you mean things didn't go?
I guess that day, I guess they were expecting to be reunited with their child that day in court, and it didn't come about. And I also was badgering them about the child support that they owed me. And we had left court, I had gone, and then next thing I know, I'm getting a call from the caseworker to take Kaylee to a hospital or a doctor immediately for a sexual exam, because the allegation had come from Cassie or Cliff.
That said what?
That said they felt that the child had been sexually abused while she was in my care.
Really?
And this really was...
What made you think that?
She would shy away from men. She would not go near them. Like if I would go to pick her up, and I mean, whenever I'd walk around, she would run right up to me. And if I'd go to pick her up, she would curl up in a ball and start crying. So what I did is I told my caseworker, this is what's happening. I don't know what to think about it. I just figured I should notify you about it. And where it went from there was that they put in the abuse allegation for...
Against who?
Against her mother.
You're crazy. Something wrong with you. And you're a nasty person, too.
How am I a nasty person?
You're a nasty person because you retaliated against somebody who took on a responsibility that you and your wife couldn't take care of, which is taking care of a 3-month-old child. I assume that Miss Brady, once she raised her own children, didn't plan on nor desire to raise a 3-month-old baby. The reason she had to do that was in order to prevent your 3-month-old daughter from going into a foster care situation. Because the two of you neglected her, minimally neglected her, perhaps abused her. So she was for 20 months. And instead of kissing her feet, which you should have done,
we tried.
You accused this teacher, this person who cleaned up after your mess, of abuse. That's why you're not a very nice person. Because I have a sense that you rule the roost in your house. That's my sense. My sense is also that your wife could use a little psychiatric intervention. And if you don't see to it that that happens, you now have 2 children?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
It's not going to be the last time that your children are the subject of intervention by the state. So if you rule the roost in your house, and if you're not the one who's abusing your children, I suggest that you get your wife some help. How much did you spend on a lawyer?
$600.
That you pay her back. How much support did you ultimately give her for the time she took care of your daughter?
We came up to a verbal agreement that if she claimed Kaylee on the tax return, we would
You
not
didn't answer my question.
We didn't
I said
give
how
her
much
any money because we had a verbal contract that if she claimed her on her tax return, we wouldn't have to pay child support anymore.
The child support wasn't ordered until 2006.
It doesn't have to be ordered. Does it have to be ordered for you to watch your child so that she doesn't get bitten?
We were giving my daughter diapers, clothes, anything that she needed.
Who cares if you give somebody diapers?
Okay, and then she comes out
Who
and tells the
cares
courts,
if you give a baby diapers?
I understand that, ma'am, but then she comes out and tells the courts that she thinks that me saying I'm not going to pay for her bills, not my daughter's, hers, is unfounded because she actually came out and said she wanted this much for this much for this, and this much for this, and one of those being cable, and my 3-month-old daughter wasn't watching cable.
Mr. Yelvington, so instead of doing something, you did nothing. Exclude the cable. You didn't even protect your 3-month-old daughter.
Yes, we did.
No, you didn't. Because your wife had to, of necessity, fed, bathed, and changed this baby over a week's period of time. And as soon as she saw the first bite mark on this child, that child should have been removed from the environment. She chose not to do that. And if you were in communication with your wife, and if there's not something wrong with her mentally, she would have told you that the 3-month-old child had been abused by somebody in that house. And if you were any sort of a parent, you would have come off the road and said, I don't care where we're going, we'll go to a shelter in order to protect her. Instead, you allowed this child to be abused over a week's period of time, according to your wife. And instead of kissing her feet, you made her life miserable. That's your mother. 25 years from now, you're not going to know who he is, but she will always be your mother. And you will always be able to count on her to clean up after you, not him. And if you need mental help, get it. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am, but there is one thing. I was not able to notify my husband of the marks because the people that we were staying with would not allow me to use the phone, and I had no...
Crawl out! Abe Lincoln walked 10 miles to school. If your child is being abused, you leave and go to a shelter. What's wrong with you?
Where we lived, there was no shelters nearby.
Go to a police station. Where did you live? In the Yukon? Quiet. You go to a shelter. You go to a police station. You go someplace. Or you don't let your daughter out of your sight.
Yes, Your Honor.
Don't say anything.
Okay.
You're both working now?
Yes.
Perfect. Your counterclaim for nonsense is dismissed. You're asking for $1,600, which includes infliction of emotional distress, which you've had, and your attorney's fees.
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff, that's all. Step out.
Thank you.
Money that was intended for her.
Miss Ross, the defendant is your cousin. According to what I've read in your complaint, she had had some trouble with Child Protective Services. And there came a time that you agreed to watch her children in exchange for a state check for watching her children.
Yes.
You watched the children. She got the state checks, 2 of them, according to you.
Yes.
She cashed them both and did not give you any money. Ms. Ross says that you only watched the children a little bit. Her boyfriend watched them more than you did. So she kept the money, and she's got some countersuit about you calling Child Protective Services and making some false allegations about her after all this went down. What's your first name?
Pauline.
Pauline, how many children do you have?
3.
You're expecting another one?
Yes.
How old are you?
21.
You have enough children, Pauline?
Yes.
Did anybody ever tell you that?
Yes.
Who else told you that?
Everybody.
So add my voice to the rest of the pack. You have enough children, there are other things to do in your spare time. How old are your children?
They're 1.
You have to think about this?
No, 1, 2, and 3.
And who's the father of your 1-year-old?
Dion.
And who's the father of your 2-year-old?
I don't know.
And who's the father of your 3-year-old?
Dion.
And who's the father of this one that you're going to have now?
His name is Nick.
And how long have you been with Nick?
9 months.
Shh. Now, when your cousin was watching your children, who was your boyfriend then? Dion or Nick?
Nick.
When did your cousin watch your children?
She started April the 2nd when I started my job.
What kind of job did you have?
Waitressing.
Now, who filed the papers for your cousin to get the state check?
We both did.
And when you filed the papers, you said you were working, correct?
Right.
And you were receiving welfare?
Yes.
So they said, well, maybe they can cut some of this welfare money by giving you money to pay a babysitter to get you back in the job force, which
Yes.
will hopefully keep you out of the baby-producing business. How much did you receive in checks? Because the checks came to you, right?
Right.
How much was the first check?
The first one was $768.
And what did you do with that check?
I moved into my house.
So you used the money for yourself?
Right.
And how much was the second check?
$384.
And that was a babysitting check?
Yes, it was.
Well, Miss Ross, you don't get paid for babysitting for your own children.
No.
And Nick doesn't get paid for babysitting for your children because he hadn't filled out the papers.
Right.
So who do you think was
her, but not her, because she wasn't watching the kids like she was supposed to. And then April 12th, I got laid off. They cut my hours due to complications of my pregnancy.
Yeah. So
But
how
she was
many
still
hours
in-
did you in fact work?
20 hours per week.
How
After
many
the
weeks
12th.
did you work?
3 weeks.
3
No,
weeks?
3 weeks full time, and then they took me off.
So were you telling me, what state do you come from?
Michigan.
The state of Michigan gave you $1,152 for 3 weeks worth of babysitting?
No, no. You're
Well,
not
you got the
understanding.
2 checks just for babysitting money.
Right, ma'am, she was calling in hours that she
Could
wasn't
I-
watching the kids.
Just a second. I understand that, but you have to sign off on it.
I called
Miss
my-
Ross, Pauline,
Yes.
you have to sign off on it. This is yet just another scam. If you don't think that I understand that this was just another scam,
I have
do.
the paper saying that I called and said my hours were reduced. It's right here. And from the caseworker.
Somebody had to sign off before you got the check, because the forms, she fills out the hours, but you have to sign off on it that she did in fact work those hours. Isn't that the way it works in Michigan?
Yes.
Of course. Works that way all over. Right? Otherwise, any babysitter could file and say, I worked 20 hours this week, unless the other person for whom she is allegedly working signs off on it. So if you people don't think that I understand that this is just another scam on the state, you're wrong. I got it. You worked 3 weeks and got checks for $1,152. You know what I'm doing with this case? I'm sending a tape of it to the state of Michigan so they can come after you and take the money out of your welfare money. This was a good scam that the 2 of you cousins cooked up together.
No.
Because there is no way that I believe.
I didn't say I got paid for 3 weeks. I was working full time for 3 weeks. I called the caseworker. Here's the paper, the document showing when I called to say that my hours were reduced to 20 hours per week. So therefore, she supposed to have cut down the maximum hours where she supposed to call in.
Miss Ross, you are not entitled to keep that check.
I know that.
Just a second. So why did you keep it?
Because she wasn't babysitting the whole time.
You don't get it. Why don't you just send the money back to them? You don't move into your apartment with it, madam. You don't take care of your expenses with it. That's not what the money is for. That's what welfare is for. That's what Dion is for.
Well, Dion don't help.
Well, that's your problem. That's not Michigan's problem. You can't keep this money. You get welfare. The fact that you don't like how much you get doesn't mean that you can scam the state out of another $1,100.
I didn't scam. I paid the person that was watching the kids.
Yeah, show me.
Nicholas.
Show me. I want to see the person who was watching the kids.
Me and Nicholas spent the money together and I paid Lakeisha.
Listen to me. Lakeisha wasn't authorized by the state to watch your children. Neither was Nick. And you don't get paid for watching your own children. Madam, if you think that I'm going to give you $1,152, you are out of your mind. What the state should do is, and I'm going to send them a copy of the tape, is go against her welfare checks to redeem $1,152. And then let them decide where the $1,152 is going to go. That's what the state of Michigan ought to do. So they have to get the money back, and then they're going to give it to you. Thank you very much. That's all. Goodbye.
James Herring says his ex-girlfriend's boyfriend, John Chavez, owes for a loan to bail him out of jail. John says it's James's fault. He was arrested in the first place.
Oh, that's interesting. Mr. Herring, you and Mr. Chavez share a girlfriend. Not at the same time.
No.
She was your girlfriend, then she was Mr. Chavez's girlfriend, then briefly she was your girlfriend, now she's back with Mr. Chavez, and if my reading of these documents is correct, this would be the lovely Jennifer. And according to your complaint, despite the fact that you had not been together, according to you now, for a year and a half, you had some mail for her.
Yes, ma'am.
So you took it to her house.
Yes, Your Honor.
And when you got to her house, there was a confrontation with Mr. Chavez. And according to you, Mr. Chavez was arrested.
Yes, Your Honor.
You bailed him out of jail.
Yes, Your Honor.
Even though he assaulted you.
Yes, Your Honor.
On his promise to pay you back the bail money, which he has not done.
Yes, Your
Mr.
Honor.
Chavez says you felt terribly guilty about what happened. You came, bailed him out of jail. There was never any promise to pay you back. All very peculiar. Mr. Herring, did you know Mr. Chavez before this incident?
I met him through Miss Jennifer Berger, but I have not known him prior to her relationship with him.
When did you and Miss Berger terminate your relationship?
January 2006, maybe somewhere in that area.
Is that right, Miss Berger?
No.
When was it?
It's over 2 years. I've been with Don for over 2 years. So.
No, don't look at him. Look at me.
I've been with Don for over 2 years, so it has to be.
Okay. You lived together?
Yes, we lived together at one time.
How long did you live together?
About 2.5 years.
What kind of work do you do, Mr. Herring?
I'm a stockbroker, venture capitalist.
What kind of work do you do, Mr. Chavez?
Hardwood floors.
What kind of work does the lovely Jennifer do?
She doesn't.
She doesn't do any kind of work.
Well, she doesn't have a job.
She's a full-time job.
Yes, very much so.
Now, you last lived together with Jennifer 2 years ago.
We still share a residence occasionally.
What does that mean, sir?
Basically, she still has a lot of her things at my house. However, she does see Mr. Chavez from time to time, and she goes over there and spends some time, and then for whatever reason, then she comes back and stays at my house. We've become very good, close friends, and so she always has a place to stay in the event that she needs a place.
But you said you didn't talk in 2 years. Stand up.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I said we haven't been together for over 2 years.
No, you said you hadn't talked in 2 years.
I didn't say talked.
What?
I didn't say talked. Misunderstanding.
You said you haven't been together.
Right.
In 2 years.
But during the 2 years, I've been over the house. I'm mostly with John.
Mostly with your boyfriend. Now, you live together as a boyfriend and girlfriend?
It's been on and off-ish.
What is your legal residence?
With Jim.
Mr. Herring.
Yeah.
You are three of the weirdest people that I've come in contact with. Very, very long time.
It gets weirder.
It's ridiculous.
The whole thing is ridiculous
Well,
unless there's
absolutely.
something that I'm not seeing here.
Absolutely ridiculous.
All right, miss, when did this incident happen? When you went over to take Jennifer, the lovely Jennifer, some mail, according to you, that had come to the house?
I don't know the exact date. You're on the 7th or the 6th of March.
Of what year?
Of this year.
Go ahead.
And then I bailed him out on the 10th of March.
Well, what happened when you went over there?
Well, when I went over to give her her mail, I called her and let her know I was coming by. She had a driver's license, her registration to her car, etc. She'd been gone for about 4 or 5 days. So I went over and I knocked at his door, and she answered the door. She came out, and I gave her her mail. I said, I'm going to be leaving. I don't want any confrontations with Mr. Chavez.
Why should you have any confrontation with him?
Because I've had him in the past.
Go ahead.
And so I started to walk away, and she came out and talked with me for a minute, and then he came out and got right in my face and started to assault me. And at that time, I turned around and I told him that I was going to call the police. I went out to my car and I called 911. The police came. They talked to me for a few minutes. Then they went down and talked to Mr. Chavez. And apparently the conversation was that they could decipher who started the fight, so to speak. They didn't press any charges against him or me. However, he did have a warrant out for him, an outstanding traffic warrant for $25,000 warrant.
$25,000 warrant for not registering his car?
No, I don't know what it was, ma'am. I think it was a headlight or something, but it was a $25,000.
You must have really ticked off a judge, Mr. Chavez.
So they arrested him.
I'm speaking.
Yes, so they arrested.
I'm speaking.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chavez, you must have really ticked off a judge to put $25,000 bail on you for a broken headlight.
It was for no registration on the vehicle, driving without a driver's license in possession, and no proof of insurance.
And when did you receive this violation?
2004, but I was working for a guy that owned a car lot, and I was driving one of his vehicles back to the lot and got pulled over, and from the understanding that his dealer plates were not currently...
What do his dealer plates have to do with your not having a driver's license?
Well, I just didn't have it in my possession.
Mr. Chavez, I've been in the justice system. How old are you?
I'm 42.
Not quite as long as you've been on this earth. But a $25,000 bail on what amounts to nothing more than driving without registration for the car doesn't sound kosher to me, Mr. Chavez. Do you understand what I mean?
Oh, no, I understand what you're saying, but it was because it was the dealer plates that were on the vehicle, and the dealer plates were supposedly not up to current registration. So...
Yes. Oh. So they took him into custody.
Yes, ma'am.
And tell me how it came about that you went and bailed him out, Mr. Herring.
I just, for whatever reason, decided to go down to the LA County Jail to talk to him. I wanted to find out why he had such animosity towards me.
You mean you wanted to find out that question? I can tell you the answer to that question in a second. The lovely Jennifer.
Yes, well, yes, ma'am. But I wanted to find out for myself why there was just such anger and so on and so forth, because I did not have any anger towards Mr. Chavez at all. If Jennifer wanted to see John or be with him, I had no problem with it.
You may not, but he does.
Yeah, apparently. So I went in there and I talked with him, and he...
You live in Los Angeles, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. It's all very strange here. Go ahead.
So I was visiting with him, and he'd been in for 2 or 3 days at that point in time.
2 or 3 days on a traffic infraction.
He pleaded with me and begged with me. He even started to sob. He begged me to post bail for him because of his daughter. He also promised at that time that if I bailed him out, he would most definitely pay me back.
Go ahead, Mr. Chavez, let me hear.
That's all untrue, you know. I'm not scared of saying that I cry, but I'm not going to be crying to him, all right? That's first off. Second off...
So just tell me what happened.
When he came to visit me, he wanted to know why there was such animosity and what he could do to not have the animosity between us anymore. And I said, well, you don't want no animosity? Bail me out. He bailed me out, and that was it.
And when for the first time did he ask you for this money back?
Actually, he asked Jennifer to give me a letter But she never gave it to me.
Why? Why didn't you give it?
I said I wouldn't. I didn't receive it from him.
Your Honor?
He asked me to give him some papers, but I didn't want to get involved. I said, this is between the two of you. You deal with it. I'm out of it. I wasn't going to serve. It was, I think, to serve him.
When was your next court date?
March 12th.
And what date did he bail you out? Do you recall? Do you recall, sir?
March 10th.
March 10th.
And you had already been there for 5 days.
Yes, ma'am.
Had you been in jail before, Mr. Chavez?
Yes, ma'am.
Same jail?
Yes, ma'am.
For how long?
30 days.
And did you do the 30 days?
Yes, ma'am.
So, doing 5 days must have been easy.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Herring?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't believe he promised to pay you back. I believe him. I believe him when he says that you said to him, what can I do to make this right? And he said to you, bail me out, and you did. Because I don't understand why, if the lovely Miss Jennifer had gotten her license and a registration for her car, you drive a car? Huh?
License is suspended.
For what reason?
For driving under suspended license.
Your license is suspended for driving on a suspended license?
DUIs. And DUIs. Combination of the two.
You people are all too confusing and I'm much too old.
I got
Mr.
3
Herring,
DUIs and
Mr.
4.
Herring, you can't have it both ways, sir. If Jennifer, and she's clearly with Mr. Chavez, I suggest that you cut all ties with her. I don't know what Miss Jennifer is doing for you that allows you to believe that someone who is living with somebody yet has an avenue to come back to live with you, you know, as sort of a safe haven. You're a safe house. This whole thing is very, very bizarre. And your visit to the jail is even more bizarre. And the fact that you fronted money for his bail is even more bizarre. And I'm a very easygoing, you know, meat and potatoes Brooklyn girl. I don't get all this mishigas. Your case is dismissed, Mr. Herring. That's all. Miss Freya, the defendant is your stepson.
Yes.
How long were you married to his father?
20 years.
Did he live with you during any of that period of time?
Not until recently. He lived with his mother. We saw him until he was 5 years old, and then she basically stole him. And we didn't see him again until he was 18.
Well, your lawsuit says that there came a time when your stepson rented a house from you and your husband. It was a house that you and your husband owned. It was a rental property.
Yes.
And he was supposed to pay rent. He did for a while, then he sort of fell off with the rent. He also was using a car that belonged to who, you or your husband?
Myself.
And your husband unfortunately passed away this past summer. And when you went to the rental property, found that he had moved out and the place was totally trashed.
Yes, it was.
And the car was likewise totally trashed.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want him to pay for that.
He should.
And his defense seems to be that if he had a debt to take care of the house, not the rent, just the condition of the house and the car, the debt was with his father, not with you. And when his father passed away, the debt vanished. Is that your defense, sir?
Yes.
You don't really believe that, do you?
Yeah.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
I'm not going to say anything funny. I guarantee you that by the time you're finished here, you will not be laughing. How old are you?
26.
How do you support yourself?
I work.
Doing what?
I install glass in buildings.
When did you move into this rental property?
A couple of years ago.
Tell me when. Don't be smart and don't be smug. Are you a drug addict or an alcoholic?
I was.
When?
Back when I was living there.
Really? Both drugs and alcohol?
Yes.
See, I was being sort of facetious because I was going to say you had to be on drugs or alcohol or else you would know how many years ago you moved into this house. So you were an alcohol abuser and a drug abuser.
Yes.
While you were living in the house?
Yes.
Are you still abusing drugs and alcohol?
No.
Did you go into rehab?
No.
You mean you just stopped?
Yeah.
You want to tell me how you did that and when?
Back in February of this year, I was stabbed and
By a stranger?
kind of. I really didn't know him. I was just partying with him.
So you were in the hospital for a while?
Yeah, well, just like one night. It wasn't really that bad. It was stabbed in the back. It just like punctured my lung, just a little.
And?
And after that, my dad had a stroke and stuff, so I just kind of figured I need to start changing my life.
Well, that's a very good thing that you figured you had what we call in the trade an epiphany, a life-altering experience, a wake-up call, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Don't be smart with me. I don't think you're cute. Now, if you have what we call an epiphany, a mind and a life-altering experience, that usually says you want to start doing the right thing. Is that right?
Yeah.
Try yes.
Yes.
And when you were living in this rental property, you stopped paying rent because you were putting up your nose or in your veins or whatever you were earning. So you stopped paying rent, correct?
Correct.
And you stopped paying for the care of this car, correct?
Correct.
Then you had this experience. Don't you think that you should go back to your old life and say, I have to make certain amends for things that I did, like trashing this house?
No.
Why not?
My dad never really had a problem with it. I mean, they knew I was partying there. They knew I was drinking. They knew I was partying. They knew I had friends coming over.
Can I see pictures of the house, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Staying with friends.
What did I ask you that was funny?
Nothing.
Why would you trash a house like this, sir?
Just having a good time.
Are you the only child that your father had with your mother?
No.
How many other children did your father have with...
One.
Where is that child?
He kind of stays with my mom.
Does he stay with your mother because he takes care of her?
No.
She takes care of him?
Well, he stays in one of her apartments. I really don't talk to them that much.
Why not?
I really don't like my mom too much.
Did you like your father?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you respect your father?
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Well...
And you don't respect him now. Did I wipe the smile off your face? You don't respect him now because if you respected him, you wouldn't have done this to his property. And if the excuse was that you were using drugs and alcohol and therefore you were not in control of yourself, that's not an excuse. That's a reason that you would allow you and your friends to do this to his property. But now you've sobered up. So I don't think that you respect your father or his memory, sir.
Yeah, but
because if you did, then you would say, this property belonged to, at least in part, my father, and I'm disrespecting his memory by leaving it like a pig pen. I'm disrespecting who he was and how nice he was to me by saying to me, listen, we'll give you a home. You don't like your mother. Maybe she's a problem, but I want you to feel as if you have a home with us. Here's a place for you to live, and you take it and trash it. But then you get clean and sober, and you don't fix it. And there's no excuse for that if you want to do the right thing and turn your life around, Mr. Frere. We understand each other?
Yes.
We're not laughing anymore, are we?
No.
I see the estimates of what it's going to take to clean up this place. I doubt whether the jurisdiction of my court would cover it. It doesn't. All right, now tell me quickly about the car.
He didn't have a vehicle, so I let him use my vehicle. And when I found out he left, we went to the house and the car was in the driveway.
How did you find out that he moved out?
He told my daughter. My daughter speaks with her brother still, and he told my daughter that he was going to move out. She's the one who informed me that he was gone. Did you need to hear that from her?
No, I'm just going to give you some advice. You too. When somebody is a drug abuser, and he acknowledges that he was a drug abuser, and unless they take care of it, it's not going to go away. And his life-altering experience didn't, from what I'm hearing, alter the way he thinks. So you look like two nice young people. Keep your distance. I know you're looking like this. I'm telling you, for your own protection, keep your distance. Bad news. Okay. Can I see pictures of the car, please?
He came to us with some serious problems, and it took us a while, and it appeared that he had straightened his life out. He really was doing great. He had a great job, made good money, and that was why he rented the apartment, why we let him move in, because we figured that it was his family. He was going to take care of it just like we would have. And he did. For over a year, he did. And then I don't know if it was his father getting sick or what happened to him, but it all just hit the wall, and he reverted right back to what he knew. And, you know, what I'm left with is to pick up the mess.
Ms. Frere, listen to me. When he came to you, he had some problems. Is that what you said?
That's exactly what I said.
And would those problems include substance abuse?
I'm sure it was. I couldn't prove it, but I would say.
And then he got a job, and he appeared to be okay.
He did very well.
And then he went back to drugs and alcohol.
Yep.
Did you hear what your mother said?
Yes.
Unless you take care of it once and for all, it's like an enemy that you wound over your shoulder. If you wound an enemy, that enemy can always come back to hurt you. right? That's drugs. You have to get rid of it. And he's not smart enough to get rid of it on his own. And he's never gone anywhere to help him get rid of it. So he's always going to go back to it. And he's going to suck you in if you let him. You understand?
Yes.
Good. So I'm glad you're working, sir. Good. And if I haven't been able to help you, that's too bad. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Granger.
Đối với những cái bé mà bị thiếu canxi thì mẹ nên làm gì? Canxi có một cái vai trò rất quan trọng đối với sự phát triển về sức khỏe của trẻ, cho nên là thiếu canxi thì sẽ ảnh hưởng nghiêm trọng đến sức khỏe của trẻ và về sự phát triển về tầm vóc. Vậy thì đối với những bé thiếu canxi thì mẹ phải làm gì để bổ sung canxi cho con? Có hai cách để bổ sung đủ cái lượng canxi cho bé là qua thực phẩm, sữa hoặc là bổ sung bằng các cái chế phẩm có chứa canxi. Thì nếu như mẹ bổ sung canxi cho bé qua đường thực phẩm thì khi trẻ thiếu canxi mẹ có thể bổ sung những cái loại thực phẩm giàu các cái loại thực phẩm như là sữa này, các cái chế phẩm từ sữa như là sữa chua, phô mai, đậu phụ, cá hồi, cá ngừ, ngũ cốc, nước cam, cải xoăn, cải ca le, cải ngọt, rau dền, súp lơ xanh hoặc là hạnh nhân. Tuy nhiên việc dung nạp canxi từ cái bữa ăn khiến rất là khó để cân đo đếm chính xác, cũng như phải cân bằng với cái nhóm khác nhau trong cái khẩu phần ăn, cho nên là mình không thể cân đo đếm được cái lượng canxi từ thực phẩm, cho nên sẽ không biết là con có đủ cái lượng canxi hay là không. Chính vì vậy nên là mẹ hãy chủ động bổ sung canxi cho con bằng nước uống, ví dụ như siro, hỗn dịch, canxi nước, viên uống, giúp con đủ cái lượng canxi cần thiết để phát triển hệ xương và răng. Cái con đường thứ hai mà mẹ sẽ bổ sung canxi cho con đó là bổ sung qua đường uống. Thì trẻ có thể dùng các cái sản phẩm bổ sung canxi để bù đắp thiếu hụt, như là cái thực phẩm bảo vệ sức khỏe có bổ sung nhiều, có cái lượng canxi cao này, rồi mẹ có thể cho con uống cái nếu như bé mà chưa nuốt được viên thì mẹ cho con uống cái dạng bổ sung canxi dưới dạng siro, rất là dễ uống này. Rồi mẹ có thể cho con bổ sung bộ 3 vi chất canxi, vitamin D và vitamin K2 để nhằm hấp thu canxi một cách tối đa này. Và nói chung là bên cạnh cái con đường bổ sung canxi bằng con đường thực phẩm thì mẹ hãy bổ sung thêm các chế phẩm từ canxi để cho con đảm bảo đủ cái lượng canxi cần thiết cho sự phát triển khỏe mạnh của bé nha mẹ.